Okay, so the recording has started, and I will hand over to the chair, Councillor Sheila Peacock.
Thank you very much, Naz. Welcome everybody to the Licences Subcommittee on this night of Tuesday, 30th of May. I'm very pleased to see so many people in attendance. Could I ask you to introduce yourselves? Councillor Barbara Blake.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Councillor Barbara Blake, Seven Sisters Ward.
Councillor Nick Da Costa.
Councillor Nick Da Costa, Highgate Ward.
Abby Layoli.
Yes, it's Abby Laywola. I'm the legal officer for London Borough of Haringey.
Dahlia Barrett.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Dale Barrett, licensing team leader.
And Naz Chowdhury.
Good evening. I'm Nazir Chowdhury. I am the Principal Committee Coordinator for Haringey Council.
And the review applicant for Maxi, Michael Squire. I think I can see you.
Yeah, good evening, Chair. I'm Michael Squire from Haringey Trading Standards.
And I've got Felicia. Is Felicia here? Felicia Ikemuzuma?
Ikemuzuma, not at present, Chair, no.
No. And Charlie, can't see Charlie. Oshinaka?
Not at present. No.
Not present.
Not at present.
Right. Also, can I please ask you to introduce yourselves, the supporters for the review application? That's Councillor Luke Corley Harrison.
Yep, here in support of the review, Councillor for Crouch End Ward.
Councillor Lester Buxton.
Yep, here to support the review, Councillor Lester Buxton, member for Crouch End.
Councillor Cressida Johnson.
Not present, Chair.
Okay. Nashar Bashar. Is she here?
Not present, Chair. I believe the ASB enforcement officers are picking up on that representation.
And I've got Marlene Daglia and Maria Ahmed from Public Health.
Yep, I'm Maria Ahmed, Public Health, and Marlene, she's not here, so she sends her apologies. And I've got Katrina Macro from my team who's with me.
Katrina, all right, I'll just write that down. Jennifer Barrett, Noise and Nuisance.
Good evening, Chair.
Yep.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Barrett, the Noise and Nuisance Team Manager. I'm also representing the licensing authority this evening in place of Nashar Bashar.
Okay, and I've got Sue Davidson. I've seen you, yes?
Hi, I'm Sue Davidson. I'm a local resident.
And Andreas? Is Andreas here with us tonight? Guzarides?
Standing, Chair.
No. Brian Ahern? No. Tim
Sorry,
Butcher?
yes, muted. Yes, I'm here. I'm a property owner.
Okay, well done. Tim Butcher? No.
Tim is one of my tenants. I don't know if that helps. You know, basically they have tried to attend these meetings numerous times, so you can excuse their fatigue.
Okay. And I got Dylan. Is Dylan with us?
Dylan is another one. I have of my tenants. I've also reached out. They both basically live above the shop in different properties. They have submitted written evidence, but I can also help by making their representations on their behalf because they have sent them to me too.
Okay, and then lastly, Arthur Murrell. Is that another one of yours, Brian?
Sorry, I'm muting myself because there's cooking going on in my kitchen. No, that's not one of my tenants.
Okay.
But you will have received, and hopefully the committee has had time to look at the evidence submitted, particularly some recent ones, both photographic and video footage of some deliveries, which were taken just like last week.
And then I've got premises license holder, Alan Yengin. No.
Good evening, Madam. It might be better if I assist you in this way. My name is Robert Sutherland. I'm acting for the license holder.
Okay.
And also in relation to attendance today, I'm sure the licensing authority will disagree with me, but at the moment I will say that the license holder is Mr. Karagos, and he is present with me. We're in the same building, and I will, if you bear with me, I'll just show you. He's sitting on the opposite side of the table.
Okay.
Next to him is an interpreter, Mr. Aslan, and he will assist Mr. Karagos in relation to English. In relation to, on previous occasions when the matter has been listed, in attendance has been myself, as well as Ms. Aylin Yengin, and another person that is referred to within the papers, Mr. Kamal Alton. Mr. Kamal Alton is Aylin Yengin's husband. Both of them were intending on being present and would have been present with us in the same place, as it were, as well as being online with for you. But unfortunately, the end of last week, the daughter who was born in September of last year became ill, and they felt that it was necessary to return to Turkey with their daughter so that she could receive medical treatment. And so they're not able to be here this evening. I have sent them the link, but I understand there's obviously their mind is concentrating at the moment on their daughter. And I don't know what the internet situation is in relation to where they are in Turkey. So they're not present, and hopefully that explains why, Councillor.
Well, thank you very
Dale's
much for
got her
that.
hand up.
I beg your pardon?
Dale's got her hand up, Miss Barrett.
Dale, I was just going to ask Mr. Sutherland about the other people. Can you hold on a minute, Dahlia? I've got Mahir and Jim Sollers and Erdal. Can you comment on those? Are they in?
Mr. Aslan that I referred to is Erdal, and he is present. Mahir is the employee of Mr. Aslan, and I anticipated he was going to be present to assist, but he's not been able to hear, but instead you've got Mr. Aslan. So Mr. Aslan for Mahir. And Jim Sollers is present. I can see he is an ex-police officer who provides some observation evidence, which you'll have seen within the papers, and he is attending to add to that and obviously deal with any questions the committee may have.
Okay. Now, Dahlia.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just clarify, please? Mr. Sutherland has just said that Mr. Karagos is in some way the license holder and so forth. That is not the case, Chair. I can confirm that an application has been submitted by Atlas Licensing to transfer the license and to vary the DPS to Mr. Karagos. That application has received an objection from the police and is therefore due before the licensing subcommittee, and that will be on the 12th of June. But at this time, there are no changes in terms of the ownership and the DPS situation on the premises license.
Madam,
thank you very much for that.
In relation to the license, it's very clear that as part of that application, which has been referred to, that the applicant indicated that the application should be treated as taking effect immediately, and on that basis the license holder is Mr. Karagos. Mr. Karagos is also the DPS. There may well have been a letter. I will not refer to it as an objection because I don't accept that it is an objection or a valid objection, but that's for another hearing on another day, probably on the 12th of June. But for the purposes of today, it may be argued there are two license holders, but certainly Mr. Karagos is the license holder at this moment in time because of by virtue of the application that he has put in and has invited the authority to treat it as being applicable immediately.
Dahlia, have a new comment on that, or Abby? Dahlia.
Chair, I think it's reasonable for, the committee to go ahead and consider the matter, because obviously the premises license itself is still in play. The difference of opinion obviously is going to be taken forward to a subsequent hearing, and where that matter will be determined by another committee chair. But the issues relating to the license are still valid and still need to be determined.
Okay, thank you for that. So can we all notice then on item 2, filming at meetings? Please note that this meeting.
Sorry, my hand is raised because I do want to follow up on that similar points to Ms. Dahlia Barrett. I do realise there's two. I'm sorry, because it is a procedural aspect. This is Brian Ahern. Again, I'm the landlord of the properties above. Only that from what I just understood is that this is the decision as regards who the license holder is to be determined on the 12th of June. And whilst the committee, Mr. Sutherland has invited the committee to grant, I don't remember his name, is it Mr. Aslan, to be the representative today. I think also the procedure was pretty clear that everybody had to have had some kind of former submission prior to being able to give any oral evidence in this whole process. So I don't see how this person should be allowed, one, before the decision on whether they actually are the license holder, to be able to participate in this subcommittee now, both on the basis that he isn't necessarily the license holder, and also he hasn't been previously giving evidence in any which way. For all of us here, yeah, this guy's new, and he's just been thrust upon us at 7:10 on a day when we've been planning this for months.
Can I call back on you, Dahlia, please?
Certainly can, Chair. So we did receive notification from Mr. Sutherland's office to say who was going to be attending with him. Mr. Caragos was on the list. At the end of the day, all parties are able to speak with, or put their case to the panel, and it will be for the panel to determine the outcome of that. There are a number of options, and when I set out the report, I will put in place what the options are for the committee to consider in this regard. And it lies with the committee at the end of the day, Mr. Ahern.
Okay.
So sorry, Ms. Barrett, are you suggesting that the committee should make a decision now as to whether this person should be allowed to contribute to this committee meet now? Sorry, I'm just trying to understand what you're suggesting.
Sorry, but one of the factors with a review is whether or not the committee want to determine. There's a number of things that they can determine, whether they want to change the conditions on the license, or to change the DPS, or all of those things. They could. There's a number of things that they can determine to do. And depending, I don't want to preempt anything, Mr. Ahern, because obviously we've not heard from everybody as yet on this matter. So it will be for the committee to make a decision as best as they see it after they've heard from all parties.
I understand that, but this does have an impact on the way that this whole process today happens. And just to get clarification, are you suggesting they need to make this decision about this person who is now sitting in this meeting today, and they will make that decision as whether they can contribute as part of this meeting?
Abby, do you want to say anything on this, please? Abby?
Yeah, just to clarify, I think what we're saying is that Mr. Caragos will be allowed to contribute, and then it will be for any representations about what he's said to be made, and they will be taken into account and given the appropriate weight. So he will be. There's not a decision that's going to be made about it. The decision has been made that he is going to be allowed to contribute.
Is that okay with you, Mr. Ahern?
Well, it's okay. This will have to. I don't want to take any more time. I think this needs to be reviewed later, because you've said that a decision has been made. Who made that meeting? Under what procedure? Who was there to do that? I'm going to leave it for now, but I'm not happy.
I can see Mr. Sutherland's hand is up. Mr. Sutherland, do you want to say something?
Madam, thank you. It was merely to say that at this moment in time, Mr. Caragos is actually a party to these proceedings, and by virtue of that application, I appreciate what your licensing officer is saying. And as I say, on another occasion, by the 12th of June, No doubt that matter will be sought to be put in front of the committee, which I will object, and no doubt a decision will be made. It's not a decision that this committee needs to make today. It'll be dealt with separately on another occasion, but he is a party to the proceedings today.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Can I now proceed? As I was saying, this meeting is being recorded and will be available for public viewing. Naz, are there any apologies?
No apologies, Chair.
And any urgent business?
No urgent business raised.
And also on item 5 is declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations of interest? No. No. I can't see. Barbara, no? No.
No interest.
Okay. Okay. Well, the procedure for the meeting has been emailed to all participants by the clerk for the purposes of any members of the public watching. We will first hear from the licensing officer. After that, the review applicant will present their case to the subcommittee. The premises license holder and the subcommittee will have the opportunity to ask questions. Then the supporters for the review applicant will present their case. The premises license holder and the subcommittee will have the opportunity to ask questions. Finally, the premises license holder will present their case and the subcommittee. The review applicant and review applicant supporters will also have the opportunity to ask questions. All parties will then have the opportunity to sum up, and then the meeting will conclude to allow the subcommittee to deliberate and reach a decision. This decision will then be provided in writing within 5 working days of this meeting. So if you wish to speak, please raise your hand and direct all your communications via me. We will take all papers as read, unless there's anything you wish to draw our attention to. All speakers will be allocated 5 minutes to speak, and please don't go over 5 minutes, please. When speaking, please be succinct and do not exceed the allotted time, unless you request for an extension of time, which is at the discretion of myself. Please do not share addresses of speakers. In the event that there be several speakers for each party, please avoid repetition and perhaps consider having a spokesperson to address all concerns. So we'll start with item number 7, application for a review of a premises license at Maxi Food and Wine, 42 Topsfield Parade, London, North 8, which is in Crouch End. Mrs. Barrett, will you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Chair. I will do my best to summarise because there's a lot to get through here. As you've said, Chair, this application is a review. The review has been brought by the Trading Standards RA against the premises due to the fact that they have failed, they say, to uphold the licensing conditions of the Prevention of Crime and Disorder and the protection of children from harm. In this regard, the premises was found to be stocking for sale of controlled medication and non-compliant e-cigarettes. Also, NUS gas being supplied to customers who then consumed the substance outside the premises, which then led to nuisance and antisocial behaviour. Just to say, Chair, the objective of prevention of crime and disorder is also being impacted, and you'll see from the documents, Chair, that the public health and the other RAs have also said that prevention of public nuisance should also be added to the review due to the antisocial behaviour that resulted from the operation of the premises, as well as public safety objective due to the illicit goods that could have been harmful to health, Chair. Within the Trading Standards Officer's pack, Chair, I'm not going to run through their details because obviously they need to present their case, but you've got a raft of documentation there that is supplied as supporting documents. The Trading Standards Officer believes that Ms. Aileen was not promoting the prevention of crime and disorder licensing objective due to the unlawful activities, which included the illicit tobacco that had been seized, breaches of license conditions, selling of non-compliant vapes and e-cigarettes, selling of Viagra and sildenafil without medical registration from Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, the selling of drug paraphernalia, and also the selling of nitrous oxide. The the application sought to request the licensing committee to consider a suspension of the license and the addition of further conditions. Ms. Yengin and those associated with the business have sought to break the law without regard over a period of time, including from other premises they operate in the Enfield area. Ms. Aileen's husband, Mr. Kamal, has a history of selling illicit tobacco and alcohol and other non-duty paid items. Their operation is mainly family or operated, with licenses being transferred amongst family and associates when issues arise. And this, I believe, Chair, demonstrated in the paperwork before you. Chair, during the consultation period, representations were received. So there is a representation from the Metropolitan Police Chair at page 71. They send their apologies that they're unable to send an officer here this evening, but you do have their representation at page 71, where they have set out their concerns and are asking for a revocation of the license, Chair. The licensing authority has also made representation, Chair, and again are asking for a revocation of the license. The public health representation at Appendix 4 is weighing in on the health harm impacts from the illicit drugs and vapes and NOS gas, and also asking for a revocation of the license. The noise responsible authority representation speaks to the engagement that's been happened with the business relating to antisocial behaviour arising from the sale of NOS gas from the premises and the use thereof in and around the area, Chair. You have also in the pack, Chair, the representations from other parties. You have the ward councillors, all 3 ward councillors have made representation against this matter, and you've also have various additional papers, and footage that's been submitted by Councillor Corley Harrison as well, Chair. You have the residents' representations, and I know Mr. Ahern is here. Obviously, he's just said that he's representing a number of his tenants that live near to the premises. The premises license holder did not engage during this process, Chair, but obviously come the various committee stages, and apologies, there has been 3 previous committee hearings set for this, which did not end up going ahead. They were adjourned for one reason or another. At section 3, Chair, you have the licensing history that sets out how the premises came to the attention of the authority. That was due to residents' complaints to the ward councillors, which were then followed up. Over the page, on page 4, Chair, we have got the background history of the previous premises that has been operated by Mr. Alton and Miss Yengin in Enfield. So you've got the details there for what's happened at 495 Hertford Road. Again, similar issues found there, and the premises license being reviewed. And again, at 38 Chayside, similar matters found there. And again, that license was also reviewed. And once again, that was then, it seemed like a transfer and variation was also made after the fact there also, Chair. Chair, if I go on to highlight, please, that so before I go to highlighting what your possible options are, Chair, just to point out that you do have in the additional documents, Chair, the bundle that's been submitted by Mr. Sutherland. So there is a crime and disorder report, which I'm no doubt Mr. Sutherland will draw your attention to and have his colleagues speak to that, as well as some training documents that have been put in place, I believe, by Atlas Licensing in order to assist the operator here. They are very similar or the same documents actually that have been used on the Enfield cases as well, Chair, from what I can see. And Chair, just to round up, Chair, so in terms of the decision and what the committee is able to consider doing or steps that can be taken, the panel, after hearing from all parties, may decide to modify the conditions of the licence or to exclude a licensable activity from the scope of the licence, or to remove the designated premises supervisor, or to suspend the licence for a period not exceeding 3 months, or to indeed revoke the licence. In deciding which of these powers to invoke, we ask the subcommittee to give clear, thought out reasons behind whatever steps are taken, Chair. Also, just to highlight that Section 17 of the Crime and Disorder Act comes into play here. That's requiring an authority to make sure it has a duty to ensure that it's taken sufficient steps to keep its area free from crime and disorder, Chair. The Human Rights Act comes into play here, Chair. And you've also got the list of the various appendices throughout this document pack as well, Chair. Chair, can I just also point out, please, that there is it is mentioned within section 9 of the report here, Chair. A number of reviews may arise in connection with crime that is not directly connected with licensed activities. For example, the sale of contraband goods. The subcommittee does not have the power to judge the criminality or otherwise of any issues. The subcommittee's role is to ensure the promotion of the crime objective in this regard, Chair. And there are further bits from the guidance, Chair, at sections 9.3 and 9.4 of the report for you to have regard to also, Chair. Chair, there have been, or throughout the pack, you will have various photos that have been submitted by residents and by the ward councillors of the NOS gas and so forth that's been either been delivered or been discarded in the street, just littered outside on the street also, Chair. You've had the latest set of pictures that were delivered, Chair, in the last round of supplementary documents, again, that was submitted by residents last week following sighting of, but they claim to be a delivery of the NOS gas being taken at 42 Topsfield Parade. And also, Chair, you have the update in relation to the matter with Mr. Caragos, in that he has or is known in speaking with colleagues in Enfield, Mr. Caragos is known to them and has not, when they have come into contact with him, been in a position to assist officers when they've carried out their inspections, Chair. Chair, there I can leave it if you have any questions for me, but I'm mindful that you'll want to hear from the trading standards officers. They set out their case for this review, Chair.
All right. Before I hear them, I'm going to ask the members. Councillor Da Costa, I can see your hand is up.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Dahlia. Just wanted to check, what date did the licence review process formally commence?
On the 17th of March, I believe, Chair, that was in the report pack. 17th of March, an application to review was submitted.
Thank you.
Have you any other questions, or is that the only one? Councillor Barbara Blake?
No questions, Chair.
Okay, and then the premises licence holder? Is that Mr. Sutherland? I can see your hand is up. Yeah, come off mute, Mr. Sutherland.
Sorry, madam, I'm trying. My finger isn't doing what I wanted to do. It's a little noisy at my end, so I'm hoping that you can hear me. The question, I think, from Councillor Da Costa, if I could just pick up on that, because I think he's been given the incorrect date. If I could refer Ms. Barrett to page 25 of the committee papers, and I think that's the date that the application for review is submitted.
What date is that?
Sorry, 16th of February was dated on the form, Chair.
Okay.
Sorry,
I think
it might be on my report.
17th of March. Looking first of all, perhaps you could help me, Ms. Barrett. Paragraph 1.2 of your report is incorrect, isn't it?
In that it's not the 17th of March, yes.
Okay, and then also the hours are incorrect, aren't they?
So it's through till midnight.
Thank you. Now, I'm not sure whether this is a question for yourself or whether it's more a matter of comment, but coming back to section 3 of your report, page 3, you refer to the transfer application and a variation of a DPS application because the previous license holder was not at the premises. I think that's the basis on which they were required to stop selling alcohol. Are you able to assist me as to when they were asked to stop, whether they stopped immediately?
Sorry, which section is this? Sorry.
I'm on section 3, and I think you start to refer to it on the 3.5.
Is that on page 3, Mr. Sutherland?
On page 3, madam.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Sutherland, what's your question?
The question is that there's a request, I think, for by the licensing authority to transfer the license and vary the DPS as the, I suppose, the current, but I would say previous license holder, previous DPS, was not at the premises. And I think that there's a request that they stop using the license until that happens. And my question was, do you know, or are you able to confirm that they, as soon as they were told to stop, they stopped?
I can only go by the dates there. So the visit was made on the 28th. Yeah, and it says that on the 29th, a submission was made for the transfer on the 29th. Yeah.
Yes. So are you able to indicate, or do you know whether they stopped selling immediately?
No, I do not know if they stopped selling immediately. No, sorry.
Do you know if I was to suggest to you, in fact, they actually had permission from the previous license holder to carry on trading? Are you able to confirm?
I'm unable to verify that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Then we go to. There's a suggestion all the way through. I think it comes out in part 5 of your report, which is headed Maxi Food and Wine, 38 Chayside, and it really, I think, covers pages 4 and 5. The suggestion being that an application to transfer the license and vary the DPS somehow thwarts the whole review process. It may be sufficient because I don't think it reflects the conversations that we've had, even though I know that my name is referred to it in the papers. Have I at all times made it very clear that that's what would happen here, and it was in no way intended to thwart the review process? Indeed, it has always been my position that the review would have to be heard and a decision have to be made, even if those applications were made.
I think that's something you need to answer yourself, Mr. Sutherland. I believe that you've always maintained that in doing so, it would be to assist the licensing subcommittee. And I think you used the same argument as well when you spoke to me and said it was exactly what you said also to the Enfield licensing subcommittee.
And it's correct, isn't it, that the Enfield subcommittee, in fact, suspended the licence for 3 months and modified the conditions?
On that occasion, depending on what they had heard, yes.
So that's what they did, didn't they?
On that occasion, Mr. Sutherland, I'm not debating that. I'm saying to you on that occasion, depending on what they had heard.
Now, what, I don't know whether you can assist me, because I'm not entirely clear whether this is your document or not, and it would certainly help me. On the additional bundle 3, which is submitted, there's a document, page 1, which refers to the licensing officer update. Is that your document, or is that?
It is, yes.
Okay.
It's setting out the application that's been submitted.
Okay, and who produces this information? Is it yourself, or is it the licensing department? Who is it?
One and the same, Mr. Sutherland.
Okay. My question is to who produces it. I think is important, because of course you'll be familiar with the guidance, as I am, about maintaining a separation of powers between the licensing officer who is advising the committee and the responsible authority of the licensing authority, who may put in a representation in relation to an application.
That's correct, Mr. Sutherland, but that document is really to give the updated position for this committee who have got this matter before them. So you notified that Mr. Caragos was going to be attending, so it was important, therefore, that the committee had all the facts before them as well for this. It is for you, and you are able to say to the committee, and I have also said to this committee, that Mr. Caragos's application is subject to a separate matter.
Well, of course it is, but you go on further than that, don't you? Because you go on to say, you go on to talk about events in February, alleged events in February at the premises in Enfield, and to talk about things that may have been seized, I know not what, nor do you say. But you go on into far more detail. I would say, very bluntly, you're casting aspersions upon Mr. Caragos's character, aren't you?
Sorry, Mr. Sutherland. So if that's the argument you wish to make to the committee, you're perfectly at liberty to do so.
No,
it's for the committee to put whatever weight they feel, they wish to on this matter.
If I'm not being clear, Ms. Barrett, then forgive me. I think what I'm trying to say is that you are confused as to your role in this particular application, and you have become a responsible authority when in fact you should be acting as the licensing officer and maintaining a neutral position in relation to the information that you are putting in front of the committee.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sutherland. I think the information that's been put before the committee is just setting out the background information for them. And like I say, you are entitled to refute that. That's what's written down there, and the committee is able to take that under advisement also.
Where does that information come from?
It has come from myself as the licensing officer, Mr. Sutherland.
I think we've pursued this long enough, Mr. Sutherland, and I have other people with their hands up. If you'd like to just wait a minute, please. I've got Mr. Ahern with his hand up.
Hi, listen, just regarding that information that regards to the February events and previous sorts of offences that are related to the licensing holders and the businesses that they've operated and all that, you don't have to rely, or even you don't have to be influenced by what Ms. Barrett has put in this, whether it's her role or not. There's this amazing thing called the internet, which I'm sure numerous of us has Googled and seen those offences, seen what's happened. I had nothing about what Ms. Barrett had put was able to provide any further information to me than I saw by reading the Enfield minutes, which are available publicly. This is all public documentation. I'm really not sure what the relevance of this, and we've taken a load of time on some sort of strange procedural matters. Can we please move on to the substantive issues?
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Ahern. Mr. Sutherland, can I call the other people who've made representations, please? Okay. So can I start with
Sorry, Chair. Mr. Sutherland may not have finished, Chair. So, and also the our lawyer had her hand up also, Chair.
Mr. Sutherland.
Madam, I do have some other questions, if I may. I will move on from the point that I was making. It is an important point because obviously if the matter goes elsewhere, if it's a point that I should have taken in front of you and have not, then I could well be criticised. It's an important point. It's been mentioned that the Human Rights Act applies, and of course it does, and that's what the guidance from the Secretary of State seeks to make sure that there's a separation, and I'm questioning whether that in fact is actually the case in this matter. Okay. But I can move on, Madam, in relation to two other matters, if I may. It's suggested at paragraph 5.4 of your report, Ms. Barrett, top of page 5, if I may, that on a previous occasion, Ms. Yengin was not present at the Teams meeting, but her husband, Mr. Alton, was present. If I was to suggest to you that at all meetings I have been present, and at all meetings Ms. Yengin has been present, are you in a position to contradict that?
No, Mr. Sutherland.
Then why in your report does it say that she's not present?
So, Mr. Sutherland, I don't know. Is this leading on from the Chase one, is it?
Bottom of 5.4.
The 6th line on page 5.
Thank you, Madam.
It says that Miss Yangin, the PLH and the DPS were not present at the Teams meeting, but her husband, Mr. K. Alton, was present. That's what it says.
Thank you, Madam, it does. And I'm questioning why, because it's not correct.
Sorry, Mr. Right, so Miss Yengin was not present on that call when we did the introductions. Mr. Alton did say he was present.
Miss Yengin was present in the sense that when we did the introductions, I introduced everybody in the room, and Miss Yengin was present.
That's what, Mr. Sutherland. If it's a benefit, if if it's going to make this any quicker for you, if you're saying that Miss Alton was there, what I'm saying is her name was not called out. I didn't note her name down myself, but certainly Mr. Alton, I did. Yeah.
Are you accepting that she was present?
You are advising the committee of that fact, Mr. Sutherland. I'm not going to dispute you, Mr. Sutherland. You are advising the committee that you're saying Miss Yengin was present. I'm not going to dispute you about that.
Thank you. 5.8. You state that Miss Yengin and Mr. Alton have continued to operate their businesses with little or no regard to the law. And what basis are you saying that? From what date are you saying that?
So, Mr. Sutherland, so you have before you, or you yourself are aware, Mr. Sutherland, because you've obviously been representing them at each and every review application, that's taken place previously in relation to similar matters in Enfield. So, if somebody does a mistake, well, certainly from my upbringing, if you make a mistake once, you'd put it down to, okay, you didn't know, it's experience. But if you go back and do the same thing a second and a third time, then, questions need to be asked, I suppose.
Well, that may be true, and that may well be something which the committee take into account. But the reason I'm asking this is, On what basis are you putting it in? You're an officer who's producing a supposed balanced report for the committee to take into account so that they can make a decision on it. You've already made a decision for them. You're
I'm not a decision maker, Mr. Sutherland.
And have continued to operate their businesses with little or no regard to the law. And I'm saying to you, on what basis are you saying that? Surely it's for the
I've just given that response, Mr. Sutherland. I've got nothing further to say on that. So again, if you wish to make your case to the committee on that matter, you're certainly able to do so.
Thank you, Madam. I've got no further questions.
Thank you very much. Abby? Abby, you had your hand up.
Yes, it was just in relation to the questions that Mr. Sutherland was asking. I was just going to ask him to move on, but we've gone past that now.
Okay. All right, can I call on Councillor Luke Corley Harrison, please? Luke, you're on mute.
Thanks, yeah. Want to first make representations?
Yes, please.
Okay. Fine.
Sorry, Chair. Sorry, Chair. Can we just hold on a minute, please? You do actually need to hear from the Trading Standards Officer first because it's their application.
Oh.
So they actually do need to state why they brought that, why they brought the application, and then you can hear from the other parties.
I'm only going by the list that was provided. So who am I calling now?
So the Trading Standards Officer, Mr. Squires, to put the case forward as to why they represent why the application was submitted in the first place.
Okay. Right, Mr. Squires.
Right. Good evening, Chair. This review relates to two visits carried out at the licensed premises on the 11th of January 2023 and the 24th of February 2023. Sorry, 24th of January 2023, apologise. On the first visit on the 11th of January, Trading Standards visited the premises with tobacco dogs, but no illegal tobacco was found. Whilst on the premises, the officers discovered significant quantities of nitrous oxide cartridges behind the sales counter, where they could be easily accessed by shop staff, together with larger 640-gram canisters in the rear storeroom. Photographs were taken of the products, which are attached to my report. On the shelf edge display behind the counter, officers noticed that sildenafil citrate erectile dysfunction tablets were visible to customers. These are commonly referred to by the trade name Viagra. Large stocks of tablets were found behind the counter on the seller's side. These tablets are only legal to sell with the approval of a registered pharmacist or on prescription. The shop worker was ordered to remove the erectile dysfunction tablets from sale and to inform the owner that they were illegal to sell at the premises. As Trading Standards remained concerned about the nitrous oxide and the medicines being on the premises, they wrote to the DPS, Eileen Yengin, asking for comment. She replied, and her comments are attached to my application. Madam, a second visit was carried out by Trading Standards on the 24th of January 2023. On this occasion, nitrous oxide was again found on the premises, this time in smaller quantities, both behind the counter and this time in the rear kitchen area. Erectile dysfunction tablets were again found on display, although the shelf edge display was different to the previous visit. And I believe there's a photograph on page 37 of your documentation to show that. Further stocks were found behind the counter. Altogether, on this occasion, 11 Camagra gel sachets and 102 sildenafil citrate tablets were seized by Trading Standards. The electronic cigarettes were also inspected by Trading Standards on this occasion. 33 Elux 3500 puff vapes and 10 Geek Bar 1500 puff vapes were found on the counter display. A further 40 Elux 3500 puff vapes were found behind the counter. The vapes were seized as they had oversized tanks in excess of the 2 mil allowance, which would equate to around 600 to 650 puffs. So the 3500 and 1500 puffs were far in excess of the allowance of 600 to 650 puffs. Many of the seized vapes also had incorrect health warnings, and the majority had no UK addresses on the packaging, which is a requirement of the regulations. The seized vapes were not of a type approved by the Medicines Healthcare Regulation Authority. A second letter was sent to the DPS, this time asking questions under caution about the seized products. And a response was received, which is attached to my application. Right. Trading Standards was subsequently made aware of a number of photos taken in the surrounding area of discarded nitrous oxide canisters. From the pictures, it can be seen that these circumstantially match the types of cartridges on sale at the licensed premises. On the 3rd of February 2023, Trading Standards were made aware of a TikTok page associated with the licensed premises. The page identified the premises and other premises known to be associated with the business operators. The page promoted vapes and nitrous oxide side by side with videos set to music, appearing to promote the products in a format appropriate more for recreational use than a legitimate purpose. Trading Standards are particularly concerned as the TikTok site is associated with a younger demographic. The video on the TikTok page also appear to be filmed at the licensed premises. The TikTok page and videos associated with the nitrous oxide were captured by a web capture tool by Trading Standards and are attached to this application. Trading Standards have brought this review for the following reasons. The erectile dysfunction medication was not removed from the premises after the first Trading Standards visit, despite the worker being told verbally and a follow-up letter being sent to the DPS. Indeed, on the second visit, and the photos show, the display had been rearranged. TS now believed that the DPS was aware it was illegal to sell these medicines even prior to the first visit, as similar products were seized from a premises in Enfield under her control. Electronic cigarettes with oversized tanks present a significant safety risk if a nicotine were to leak onto the skin in larger quantities, as it can be absorbed and prevent a health risk. TS believe again that the DPS knew the issues associated with these cigarettes, as Enfield again had seized these products from a premises under her control prior to the first TS visit. The presence of nitrous oxide in larger quantities on the premises, together with their promotion on TikTok, leads TS to conclude that these products were being sold recklessly as to their use as to psychoactive substances rather than for baking. This is corroborated circumstantially by the presence of discarded canisters in the local area. Trading Standards made a number of recommendations in relation to this matter. We've compiled a number of additional conditions which could be attached to the licence if the committee decided it was appropriate. These would effectively ban the sale of nitrous oxide on or near the premises by the business and their storage on the premises, ban the storage of controlled medicines on the premises, bring in additional controls for alcohol and tobacco, and I understand there is no objection to these proposed conditions from the licensee's representative. Trading Standards have also asked for the removal of the DPS, which I understand again is not opposed. That would be the original DPS. Trading Standards' initial recommendation was for a 3-month license suspension in order to bring in these new controls. However, having seen the full extent of the evidence presented, notably by the other responsible authorities, we have to conclude that it may now be more appropriate to revoke the licence due to a systemic failure to promote the licensing objectives. Should the committee not be minded to revoke the licence, then a period of suspension with the removal of the DPS, with the proposed conditions added, remain an option for the committee. Madam, that's a brief summary of the Trading Standards case in this matter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Squire. I do apologise for not calling you earlier. Can I call on Felicia now, please?
Yeah, I'm here, but there's nothing additional I need to add to that.
Okay, and I don't think Charlie's here either.
No, he's not here.
No. So then, can I ask the members then, if you have any questions? Nick, I can see your hand is up. You're muted.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I was just getting my mouse over to the unmute button. Thank you very much for that. Mr. Squires, based on page 16 of the bundle, you state that Olga, who was the member of staff, Rohat Olga, who was working, to quote, Olga informed officers that nitrous oxide was sold to local cafes. He replied he had no knowledge of the misuse of these products. In your opinion, was this a genuine response?
Yeah, that was the response I was given when I discovered the nitrous oxide canisters behind the counter. I quizzed Mr. Olgar about them, what they were there for, and that was effectively his response, that that they were sold to local cafes. And I then prompted him of whether he knew what the other purpose of these was for, and he replied that he didn't know that there was any misuse or psychoactive issue with them. He wasn't aware of any. That was his response.
Have you any more questions, Mr. Councillor Costa?
Thank you. Yes, I do, Chair. Thank you. On page 17 of your report, you mentioned the non-compliant e-cigarettes, which you mentioned. In Ms. Yengin's letter of the 3rd of February, in response to question 15, she states that they were stocked behind Rizzlers as they were old stock from old members of staff. Does the description in her letter of the 3rd of February, response to question 15, match what was found at the shop with regards to the illegal vapes?
The illegal vapes there was a display of vapes on the counter. At the front of the counter, the actual vapes were compliant. At the very back of this display, there were some non-compliant ones, and behind the counter on the seller's side, there were some non-compliant ones. That's effectively how they were laid out. If it relates to Rizzlers are very small, so the vapes were clearly on display, albeit the non-compliant ones were at the back of that display.
Thank you. One last question, if I may, Chair.
Yeah.
In page 18 of the report, you mentioned large amounts of nitrous oxide, and you also mentioned the various photos of cartridges and canisters discarded in the local street. I won't go through all the page numbers of those. As per the submission by Ms. Yengin and Mr. Ulger's response, they state that the nitrous oxide was being supplied to local cafes. In your opinion, if this was the case, do you think local cafes would be discarding of these canisters on the street?
Well, I mean, I would be speculating on that, but I would be very surprised if a business would be chucking items out on the street, but obviously I can't really comment on that.
Is that it, Councillor Costa? Thank you. Councillor Barbara Blake, have you any questions? You're on mute.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Mr. Squires, I mean, I've listened to your report, and it seems complicated. You know, some of the items are compliant, some are non-compliant. How easy is it for someone running a business to understand what they can sell and what they can't sell? I mean, you know, how easy or difficult is it for business owners to know what's actually compliant, non-compliant, or legal or not legal?
I mean, the subject of vapes is quite complicated on what is legal and what isn't legal. But once you have a basic knowledge, it is quite easy to spot, because the tank size of 2 ml, which is the maximum size that you can have of liquid in a disposable vape, generally speaking, it equates to a number of puffs, which is 600 or so. 600 puffs is the general thinking on that, and nearly all vapes have that number written on the front. So if it's a 600 puff vape, it will have a 600 on the front. If it's a 3000 puff vape, it will have 3000 written on the front. So once you know the basics of the legal requirements, then it is quite easy to spot. Same with the name and address. If it's not got a UK name and address, then it's probably not legal, because they should all have a UK name and address. So although there are technicalities involved in it, once you know the basics, they are quite easy to spot.
Okay, can I just follow up with Chair? So in terms of the erectile dysfunction tablet, I mean, why would, I'm not quite sure, you can buy those over the counter, I assume, in a chemist, but you have to have them on prescription? Is that correct?
I think maybe Public Health may give you more information on this than I can, but my understanding is that you can't buy them over the counter per se. You can buy them from a pharmacist over the counter, but only after the pharmacist has spoken to the applicant, so to speak, and asked them what their health conditions are, because these tablets can have an effect on health, and they shouldn't be given to people who have certain heart conditions. But I mean, public health maybe it'll help you more than that. So it's not a simple question of going in and buying them. There would be a conversation with a pharmacist. So these tablets should not be in a corner shop.
Okay. Can I just ask the chair then, just quickly, the public health? I mean, how dangerous is it for somebody to just go in and buy erectile dysfunction tablets just because for a joke or something? I mean, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get my head around it.
Yeah, so I can answer that, Chair. It is dangerous because if in person or online, the supplier should be a doctor registered with the General Medical Council, the Care Quality Commission, and the pharmacist registered with the General Pharmaceutical Council. So it should be the supplier should be the pharmacist or the doctor. It can't just be anyone else, and it's because they have that information, they have that knowledge and the security of the supply chain of that medication that is being distributed to the patients or the customers to ensure its safety of its use. And yeah, so the members of the public would not be prescribed to use these medications even legally, because they may have certain underlying health conditions. So we must know what the patient's medical history is, what is their previous use of it, if they've had any previous side effects using it. So they need to have all that information on the customer or the patient, and that's something that I'm sure Maxi Food and Wine would not have that information.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Sutherland, have you any questions of Mr. Squire? I can see your hand is up. You're on mute.
Thank you, Madam. Yes, I do have just a couple of questions from Mr. Squire, if I may. Mr. Squire, in relation to the vapes, I think you were quite clear in relation to the number of puffs and how technical it can be, but once you've got basic knowledge, then more straightforward. Would you accept from me that vapes such as the ones that were seized at Maxi can be purchased from the local cash and carries, quite legitimately purchased? Well, I say legitimately, on the face of it, legitimately purchased by shops for stocking for the purpose of sale on to their customers?
I would accept that vapes can be purchased from local wholesalers for sale on to customers. The ones that were seized shouldn't be available in local wholesalers. Obviously, I wouldn't deny that they probably are available in certain wholesalers because that's how they got onto the market. But the ones that was actually seized from Maxi's were illegal and therefore shouldn't have been supplied within the UK. There is a widespread problem with these vapes currently in the UK, and there are lots of them in the country, but they shouldn't be available from local wholesalers in the larger tank sizes.
I accept that, and forgive my clumsy question, and thank you for being very complete in your answer. Can you assist me though? You would accept from me that whilst not lawful for them to be sold by local cash and carry premises, in this particular case, we're saying that they were purchased at local cash and carry premises, and from your experience, would you think that is more likely than not to be correct?
I am aware that there have been seizures from cash and carries in the London area. A particular local cash and carry I can't comment on because we certainly haven't seized any from local cash and carries, but we have seized them from a number of local shops in the area.
Thank you. In relation to the nitrous oxide gas and the supply of the nitrous oxide gas, Are you aware of any other premises that sell the nitrous oxide gas in the area?
Not within Crouch End. On the 24th of January, on the first visit, I did conduct 4 other visits that day in the immediate vicinity of Tottenham Lane. None of the other shops had nitrous oxide canisters, as far as I could tell. I did a thorough inspection. So certainly the immediate vicinity, I didn't find any on that particular day. I can't comment beyond that.
It may be that this question isn't really one that you can assist me with, but it's possible that you know the area very well, and I'm sure you know your colleagues very well. But there's evidence of a visit in April of this year to the area where persons are seen to be, it's said, are seen to be using balloons with nitrous oxide. Now, it's clear that the nitrous oxide doesn't come from Maxi on that occasion. So would it, are you prepared to accept that there could or would be other premises in the area who would sell nitrous oxide? It's not a nitrous oxide free zone, is it?
I would be speculating if I was to say one way or the other. I couldn't categorically say that at every moment of the day there is no nitrous oxide for sale in Crouch End, nor could I say that there is really. I haven't seen it myself, but I'm not denying it could be the case.
There's no evidence either in your original application or since the application was made back in February of any sale of nitrous oxide to individuals, any sale of nitrous oxide at the premises, but particularly to any individuals who have misused it outside of the premises, isn't there?
Certainly trading standards have no evidence of that.
Now, if I could just refer you to the conditions which you set out from pages 21 to 23 of the agenda papers, and I think it's been suggested to you that that nitrous oxide, in fact, I think as part of the interview under caution, they talk about the nitrous oxide being stored at the premises and also being sold to other parties. Condition 14, which is set out on page 22, if imposed on the premises license, would prevent any storage or selling of nitrous oxide from the premises. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes, that is the purpose of that condition, yes.
Thank you. I've got no further questions, Madam. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Now we'll hear from those who submitted representations. And again, I call on you, Councillor Luke, please.
I'm sorry, do I not get to ask any questions, please, Chair, of trading standards?
Yes, I have a list and you're on the list and I'll come to you. But
I
at
thought
the
you
moment,
meant
I've got...
submission, so I do get to ask of trading standards.
Of course.
Good.
Of course.
Thank you.
Well, I'm calling the councillors first, if you don't mind, then officers, and then you. Okay. So, Councillor Luke Corley-Harrison, please. Unmute. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you. I'm calling for a revocation today of this premises licence on the grounds they've failed to uphold all 4 licensing objectives as set out in my written representation, which hopefully you've all been through. The premises has been visited on multiple occasions and...
Sorry, Councillor, sorry.
Dahlia?
Chair. So if Councillor Corley-Harrison is going to be giving his submission now, Chair, you really should have asked other parties if they had any questions of Mr. Squires before moving on. Sorry. So if Mr. Ahern wants to ask a question, he should do that now with Mr. Squires before you move on to hear from other people's other submissions.
Okay. I was going to ask him to speak, but I was going to call the councillors and that first. Anyway, Mr. Ahern.
That's really, Ms. Barrett, I really appreciate your help on that. That's really kind. So I just want to cover just a couple of things there. So I wonder why, I want to understand why trading standards are ignoring Parliament, the Home Office and the Advisory Committee on the Misuse of Drugs by failing to prosecute the licence holders and the business owner under the Psychoactive Substances Act.
Well, no decision has been made formally in respect of that, but very simply, there is elements to the offence. There's not just it isn't an offence to possess nitrous oxide.
Sir, I'm sorry. Have you been to law school?
Sorry,
No,
Mr.
I'm trained
That's not
standard.
relevant.
That's not appropriate.
That's not relevant, Mr.
The only thing is, so no, I think it's really important that we don't have people who are not like basically who are giving evidence unless they're doing so in a legal capacity. They shouldn't really be doing so. And I think actually you would find, of course, the Advisory Committee on the Misuse of Drugs actually state that it is an offence, and we can come to that later, which I have another point. Sorry,
Mr. Hearn, you can ask questions, but you can't make these wild
I think
statements
that's fair
and
enough.
allegations.
I agree, but I would just like to say that we should, I want to limit the questions to also what the answers are. And you gave
You can't control the answers, so you can ask your next question and then we'll take it from there.
I can do, but the things I also think it's, I can make that point later. However, the point being is that at the moment you have not made a decision on prosecution, if I'm correct.
Is there a question you wanted to ask Mr. Squire?
Can I just clarify the answer that he just gave me before I move on that question?
No, you can't. I'm afraid you can't. It's not time for submissions. You can ask a question.
It's not a submission. I asked for an answer and I just want to make sure I got it.
You can ask a question.
Right, I will ask the question again just to make sure I get the answer. Are you ignoring Parliament, the Home Office and the Advisory Committee on
No,
misuse
I
of
mean,
drugs?
you've already asked that and you've had an answer to it.
Okay, then I'll ask another question. Why haven't you involved the MHRA in the prosecutions of all these unlawful substances?
I have notified the MHRA of the existence of, if you're talking about erectile dysfunction legislation, I have referred the matter to them through the correct procedure by means of intelligence dissemination to their intelligence unit.
But only that substance when they actually do cover other substances, including nitrous oxide?
Certainly, I have notified the MHRA of the existence of issues at the premises.
Okay, so why haven't Customs and Excise also been involved in regarding the unlawful sale of the very large vapes?
You'll have to ask Customs and Excise that.
No, you can't ask questions that won't be within someone's knowledge.
Well,
so
I mean,
have you got any?
Sorry, it's a case of actually making the report, and that's what I'm asking. Did he make a report? Yeah. Mr. Sutherland asked you regarding or suggested there was there could maybe possibly be other shops in the area selling nitrous oxide and this sorts of stuff, nitrous oxide. But unlike Maxi, is there any evidence that any other shops are selling these sorts of things in Crouch End?
I think that he's already answered this question.
No, he didn't. He didn't say there was any evidence. He just said there could be, but I just wanted to ask.
Well,
what
I did say is I went to 4 other shops on the 24th of January and didn't find any.
Right,
I haven't been to any other shops than that, so I can't comment on what's in any other shop in Crouch End or the surrounding area.
Thank you very much. I think just one more question. I will leave you alone. So sorry. You've told Mr. Sutherland that you had no, or Mr. Sutherland asked you if you had any other evidence of customers using nitrous oxide. You said you hadn't. Have you not looked at the evidence I've submitted of somebody outside the shop on a car roof consuming a balloon directly outside the shop?
I was answering that question in my professional capacity as a trading standards officer in relation to evidence that, in relation to what I enforce. Clearly, there is other evidence which other people are putting forward to this, and I'm not really going to comment on what other people's evidence is, just my own evidence.
That I understand. Thank you very much. That's all my questions.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Da Costa and Councillor Blake, have you any further questions before I move on to the list? No. Barbara?
No questions from me.
Okay, so for the third time of asking, Councillor Luke Harrison, please.
Thanks, Sheila. So I'll start again. So I'm calling for full revocation on the grounds that the licence holder have failed to uphold all 4 licensing objectives. The premises has been visited on multiple occasions by multiple responsible authorities and has had CCTV examinations. Multiple breaches have been identified. A lot of the pack contains references to nitrous oxide and the impact of antisocial behaviour in the local area. So I just wanted to reaffirm that they have sold illicit tobacco, non-compliant vapes and e-cigarettes with content way above the UK limit. The sale of Viagra, which is illegal. The sale of Viagra, as far as I'm aware, again after that initial warning. Sale of poppers and drug paraphernalia. The sale of nitrous oxide canisters to individuals, which is on CCTV. The sale of alcohol outside of their licensable hours, which ends at midnight. And they were selling alcohol before they became the license holder and had the DPS transferred to them. Mr. Sutherland earlier tried to infer that they may have been naive in their sale because they purchased some items from a wholesaler that were on sale illegally. Purchasing illegal items and then selling them on does not make things okay. That is still an illegal sale. The premises has attracted countless instances of antisocial behaviour, with numerous reports made to the police and the council's noise enforcement teams. In the police's rep, they record in just a 30-day period, 8 reports were made about this premise alone. Ballooning has been witnessed around the property, including by children, and recent photographic evidence examples are rife in this pack. Witnesses have been willing to submit evidence to this hearing have witnessed items being passed through car windows in the early hours, fights based on what was heard that were to be understood about drugs, which were reported at a time frame. The shops themselves made a report to someone attending with a knife. I quote some of the witness statements. "I'm fearful for my own safety. I heard someone shout out loud at 5:30 a.m. this morning, 'Bye-bye, bitch, wakey, wakey, motherfucker.'" Another quote, between 4:30 and 5:30 a.m., at least 3 cars worth of customers arrive, enter and exit, shouting to the staff, "Yo, bruv, you got any strawberries?" I'm sure they weren't looking for strawberries. Another, "They will often sit directly on our stairwell. Today there was a guy there doing gas who wouldn't let me pass. I think he was trying to be funny, but he was intimidating." Another, I don't want to see balloons on the stairs when I go to work early in the morning, or children under the age of 18 consuming balloons when I come home." Others were too unwilling to submit accounts because they were fearful of recriminations against them. This is a pattern, a well-evidenced pattern over 15 years from the owners and their associates, mainly their family members, that have opened up similar shops across North London. Councillor Blake asked the Trading Standards Officer earlier if this could have effectively happened by accident. Once you have one review of something happening by accident, you don't let it happen time and time and time again. They know exactly what they are doing, and it must be stopped. It cannot be allowed to continue in Haringey. The police should also be looking at criminal prosecutions under antisocial behaviour laws for the many instances of antisocial behaviour that the sale of their items has produced in the local area. None of these issues existed before the current owners of Maxi took over. The premises was previously a newsagent's. We had absolutely no reports of problems there. There's a submission for this panel from ex-police officer Jim Sollers that indicates that he was unable to find any nitrous canisters on the evening when he was invited to attend to the shop. And he asked local residents of Middle Lane, which isn't even near the shop. I don't know what he was doing there. It's on Topsfield Parade, whether they were aware of antisocial behaviour, which just shows how ridiculous that report was. It goes on to blame the local area and the fact that there is a parade in the rear, that the shops have presumably what is suggested as dark spaces to take drugs. I'll reiterate, I've been a ward councillor for 5 years here. We have not had these problems in the local area before these licence owners took over. So I would ask that you please revoke the license, and not only that, but that you do all that you can to prevent any associates of this license holder from holding a license of any premises in Haringey again. The trading standards officers do all they can to prosecute further, and the police do all they can to prosecute further. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Can I now call on Councillor Lester Buxton, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. I'm Councillor Buxton.
Apologies.
You will get an opportunity to ask questions after they've made this representation, if you don't mind.
No worries.
Was it a question you wanted to ask Councillor Harrison?
I was going to give him an opportunity to do that.
He should do that straight away. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. Go there.
Apologies, Chair. Sorry, I didn't. I'll let Councillor Blake go first because I went first last time.
I think I just Councillor Colin Harrison, you've talked about you've been a councillor in that area for 5 years. I mean, and you did quote some of the complaints, you know, that residents had raised with you. How many complaints over the years could you estimate that you have had?
Complaints relating to this premises, or complaints in general?
Complaints relating to this premises.
Well, like I said, there was no complaints related to the premises before the license holders took over, which I believe was around spring last year. Since that time, I suspect I've had multiple complaints every month, most months since September, August, September, something like that. I'd say that there were quieter periods, and there were obviously periods where there was a lot more complaints. I think December and September was particularly bad. December was particularly bad, but it's certainly not quietened down. There was an indication, I think, in perhaps one of Mr. Sutherland's emails or representations that, for example, the sale of nitrous had been stopped as soon as they were aware of the review. Well, that is factually not the case. The issues have continued. There is photographic and video evidence of them taking canisters into the premises as late as last Tuesday. This is continuing practice, and the concerns of local residents continue, very significant concerns. I mean, most of them don't want to appear and make representations because they're fearful of what might happen.
Okay, thank you. I've got no more questions, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Da Costa.
Thank you very much, Chair. What are relationships like in the area with other licensed premises?
Good. I mean, personally, as ward councillors, we have good relationships with the traders. The traders have good relationships with one another generally as a community. I'm not aware that these particular traders are part of that trading community, but it's generally good. There's a residents association for Topsfield Parade, and they have good relationships with most of the shops along the parade. I'd say that the only constant issue is in relation to waste containment, but other than that, they don't really have any issues with, for example, antisocial behaviour from the Queen's Pub that sits directly opposite this premises. That I don't get reports of kind of late night drinking, partying, shouting, swearing, or anything like that from that or any other late night venue. Small Beer is just 5 units up the road. There's no accounts of problems there. This is the only premise actually which I receive consistent complaints about.
Thank you. And have you had any other reports of nitrous oxide being sold in any other shops in Crouch End?
No, I haven't, neither formally nor informally. And I would say that I was aware of the sale of nitrous oxide from this premises informally before I received the first, let's say, formal notification by way of a complaint. It became common knowledge that you could obtain goods from this shop last summer. Let's say on the grapevine, on the local grapevine, so to speak.
Thank you. I have one more question, and it's the same question I asked of Mr. Squires in Trading Standards. The premises license holder states that the nitrous oxide was being supplied to local cafes. In your opinion, if this was the case, would the local cafes be discarding of these canisters in the streets as provided in the evidence you've submitted and others have submitted?
No, they wouldn't, and the discarding is happening by the people that are using them, which tends to be young adults and youths, not always. I think that there is evidence of a slightly older couple of women that have used them, but that's who the discarding is happening by. And I'm sure you'll be aware, but in Lucia, our Safer Neighbourhoods police officer, she conducted a visit to all the cafes in the area, and not one of them buys these types of canisters. Has certainly not bought them from Maxi, and we've had no evidence of where they have been supposedly selling these units to. And I would add that in the pack that's in Miss Barrett, Jennifer Barrett's report, she states evidence of CCTV sales of Smart Whip happening between, happening in the early hours of the 29th of January. I don't think a commercial operation is buying their Smart Whip canisters in the early hours of the morning from a local news agent to support their cafe. But no, I'm not aware of anyone else using it or would be discarding it in the local area. And I'm also not aware of any canisters that are being left in commercial bins in the local area or commercial bags. And we have had issues with waste. I feel confident that I would be aware of that.
One more question. Sorry, you just mentioned something that made me want to ask a follow-up. In the report from Mr. Solars, in the additional report bundle, page 1314, paragraph 1.2.17, he states that, quote, restaurant staff may well have felt intimidated by a uniformed representative of the police asking who their suppliers were, end quote, regarding PCSO Lucia's visit. Based on her relationship with the local community, do you think this was likely, that local restaurants felt intimidated?
I mean, no, not at all. And obviously, it's not illegal to purchase these for commercial use. So why would it be an issue for them having stated that they were doing so? But no, Lucia has been around for a number of years in Crouch End as our community support officer. She is known by local traders. I see no reason why they wouldn't provide that information to her. Like I said, I think that the report from Mr. Solars is questionable, let's say, and it does suggest that there's no sale of nitrous oxide from this premise when very clearly there is, and then goes on at the end to say if they're going to have their license revoked, he suspects they will return to selling gas. So he's aware that they already are, and suggests that a revocation is going to lead to them selling it. So yes, I don't carry any weight on that particular report.
Thank you.
Mr. Ahern, I can see your hand is up again. Can you please be brief? And then I call on Mr. Sutherland.
I was trying, but okay. Just on the basis, there's like 4 or 5 shops, Councillor Corley Harrison, selling like cakes and bakery things where you'd expect them to use some sort of things. And also the kind of, there's quite a camaraderie generally around shops and traders regarding in Crouch End. That's quite generally a quite convivial atmosphere. Have any of them spoken in support of the wonderful service that Maxis provides in giving them nitrous oxide for their whipped cream?
No, there's been no comment from any traders to indicate that they engage with Maxi at all. And the chair of the local, the chair of the Crouch End Traders Association is a bakery owner.
Thank you, Mr. Sutherland. I can see your hand is up.
Thank you, Madam. I was just, if I may ask Councillor, it was said very clearly there's a sale of nitrous oxide from the premises, and I wanted to ask, since the middle of February, what's the clear evidence of sale of nitrous oxide from the premises?
I believe that has been provided by the Trading Standards Officer in one of the supplementary packs, where they observed 2 youths going in with photographic CCTV evidence, and then later taking that nitrous oxide, which I believe that you are questioning, but you'll have to question that particular Trading Standards Officer on that.
So you're saying to me that the only clear evidence is the evidence from, I don't think it is a Trading Standards Officer, but I think it's a local authority licensing officer, enforcement officer, but I don't take any point on that with you. But you're saying that's the only evidence that there is clear, so clearly there is a sale of nitrous oxide from the premises since the middle of February.
That is the only evidence that I'm able to provide or point to you in the pack, yes.
And there's no evidence which isn't in the pack, which you're aware of evidence that clearly there's sales of nitrous oxide from the premises.
I have been, if you want me to say so, I've been informed by local neighbours that they have seen people come out of that premises since the licence review has been called upon, and then directly take nitrous oxide outside the rear of the premises in Topsfield Parade. And I believe there's numerous accounts of the taking of nitrous oxide at the rear of number 42 and the rear of the number 44, number 46, and 42, 40, 38. But I wouldn't have said so had you not called, because it's not evidence that's in the pack that I can point towards.
So despite those rumours being made, there's no evidence that anyone has been able to produce to this committee supporting what's being said, that on numerous occasions people are coming out and purchasing nitrous oxide from inside the premises and taking it outside. So despite what you're saying about all these things which are happening and the lots of rumours that are being said, there is no evidence being put in front of this committee to actually substantiate that, is there?
Well, there's the evidence of the sale in the pack, which I already pointed to before. If you're talking about whether there is evidence within the pack, for example, CCTV evidence of a transaction having happened from inside the premises, then no. As I understand it, CCTV was requested of the license holder, and they refused to relinquish that to officers. So whilst there are claims being made, that was unable to be substantiated because the license holder was not cooperative with any of the authorities, as I understand it. However, there is clear evidence, photographic and video evidence, of large quantities of nitrous oxide being transported into the premises, both from the rear and from the front on different occasions.
Now sorry, it's a little noisy at my end, I do apologise. I'll just wait for the ambulance to go past. Sorry. Thank you for your patience. Now, I think the incident you're referring to, I think it's an additional bundle 3, I can ask precisely from the officer concerned, but it may be that you can assist. Where they actually take the photograph, I think, of the individuals is in Crouch, forgive my eyesight, Crouch End, is it Hill or Mill?
Crouch End Hill, that's correct, yeah.
Thank you. So they see that. Now that, I'm estimating, is probably almost, what is it, a third of a mile, half a mile from where the shop is?
I would be surprised if it was that. I would probably quantify it as a 3-minute walk.
Okay. I think the officers may disagree with you on that and what they say, but that is for me to ask them. And I'll ask you the question because you say there are no other premises in the area, and I say there's clear evidence that they don't get it from us on that particular occasion. Are there any shops in that area where you can buy nitrous oxide gas?
Not that I'm aware of, or ever have been made aware of.
Thank you, Madam. I've got no further questions.
Thank you. I can see no other hand. Oops. Naz, your hand.
Hello. Yes. Hello, Chair. Just to confirm, it is okay for the committee to take collective representations before proceeding to ask questions. I think it's probably best that I remind the committee that we do have a primary deadline of 10 p.m.
Yeah.
It is marginally extendable, but we are seemingly fast approaching that deadline. So I'll hand it back to you, Chair. Thank you.
That's what actually I was trying to do, but I was outruled. So there we are. So can we get back then to Councillor Lester Buxton, and can I resume what I was intending to do in the first place, which is to hear everybody and then hear the others. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening again, everyone. I'm Councillor Buxton, and another councillor for Crouch End. As you'll see from the pack, I submitted my representation with Councillor Johnson, who could not attend tonight. From our representation, you will see that we focused on the selling of nitrous oxide for inhalation and general ASB and litter that it caused. Hence, we called for a change of DPS and a condition not to sell NOS. However, having read the full agenda pack and all the representations from the police, trading standards, licensing authority, as well as the testimonials from our local residents, fellow councillors, we have come to the conclusion that the license should be revoked. I can understand how an inexperienced shop owner might miss that products were being sold illegally in their premises and would hope that action was taken when informed. However, this establishment is owned and managed by people who have a past history of licensing offences. Hence, there should be no excuse for missing illegal or counterfeit goods. Therefore, my conclusion is that the license must be revoked, and we believe that there is plenty of evidence in the agenda pack that shows non-compliance with the licensing objectives to support this decision, as well as evidence that you will hear from others tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very concise. Thank you. Can I call on Maria Ahmed, please?
Thank you, Chair. And I'll just keep it really brief. So Public Health, we're in support of the review submitted by the trading standards. We have no confidence that the premise licence holder's ability or willingness to uphold the licensing objectives. We have been informed that small nitrous oxide canisters and large stocks of large nitrous oxide canisters were found at the premises, along with 2 types of medication for erectile dysfunction: sildenafil citrate and Comagra gel, known as Viagra by its trade name. So both of these tablets were visible to the public and found under the counter, and Maxi Food and Wine does not meet the criteria to sell these medications, and only qualified health professionals such as doctors or pharmacists are qualified to distribute and ensure it is right and safe for the customer to use based on their medical history, potential medical investigations, and previous use and any previous side effects. The sildenafil citrate medication, whether that's in person or online, the supplier should be a doctor registered with the General Medical Council, Care Quality Commission, and the pharmacist registered with the General Pharmaceutical Council. Therefore, Maxi Food and Wine does not meet the criteria to sell sildenafil citrates. I was going to say as well, the pharmacists are responsible for the quality of the medication, and they have that knowledge on the security of that supply chain of the medication they distribute to patients or customers to ensure its safety to be used. Once again, Maxi Food and Wine fails to be able to do this, and therefore we are unable to ascertain the safety of this product, even if the product at face value is legally sold in the UK. There are members of the public that would not be prescribed to use these medications, even legally, because of their certain underlying health conditions. And it is a serious criminal offence to sell controlled, unlicensed, or prescription only medicines in this way. Anyone who sells medicines illegally could be exploiting vulnerable people and clearly has no regard for their health or welfare. Our concerns are raised further by the availability of Comagra gel that was found on the premises, and this has not been approved for the use in the UK by the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency. Therefore, it is not legal for use as a medicine in the UK. It cannot be prescribed by a doctor or sold by a pharmacist because it does not have that approval, or it is regulated in the UK or Europe. The public health is concerned that a member of public who may not be aware that illegal medication may not have safe ingredients or be manufactured within the high quality environments, or that the supply chain to illegal drugs is often controlled by criminal elements. In addition to this, the side effects of Comagra gel include alopecia, anemia, anxiety, cough, and all other various side effects. And there could be also rare side effects such as sudden cardiac death as well. And therefore, this has created significant risk to the public's health by illegally selling controlled drugs and prescription medicines, which can cause serious side effects. There is a reason why drugs and medicines are strictly regulated, that the benefits justifies any risks. There are definitely health risks because a patient might have a condition that means they should not take a certain drug. And the risk of serious health harm, injury, and loss of life is therefore higher with these medications, as all of these safeguards, regulations, and registrations have not been applied, and therefore public health is not convinced with the owner's response that they risk the health and lives of our residents. And just coming on to the nitrous oxide, which is also known as a laughing gas, has become one of the most commonly abused substances in England and Wales, particularly among young people. The law already bans the knowing or reckless supply of nitrous oxide for inhalation under the Psychoactive Substance Act. We have high number of drug-related ambulance call-outs in Haringey, and this has increased. There are addiction and recovery treatment services attended by our families and young people in the borough. And from the evidence that the trading standards have supplied, it shows that there's been an open use of canisters in the street, and that's a visible sign of antisocial behaviour and clear evidence that this is being used for recreational use. And just to kind of point out the kind of side effects of nitrous oxide when it's inhaled, that can cause some mental effects, including altered states of reality, a sense of euphoria, also physical effects, including vomiting, high blood pressure, paranoia, and people often mix it with other drugs or alcohol, which can be dangerous as accidents are more likely to happen. Repeated and heavy use of nitrous oxide can also cause vitamin B12 deficiency, which can lead to nerve damage. And just kind of coming to the last substance, which is illegal vapes. We do recognise that the benefits of vape as a tool to help our residents to give up smoking, but it's illegal to sell vapes to under 18. And from the we can clearly see from the evidence provided by the trading standards team that the licensee has little regard for the safety of our residents. A large number of illegal vape products were found on the premises.
Maria, can you wind up now, please? You're over the 5 minutes.
Sorry, Chair, I'll just quickly say that that the illegal vapes, they may contain banned substances which is harmful to the health. And once again, the health and well-being risk to our residents does not seem to have been taken into account. And therefore, we're not confident in the licensee ability to promote license objective, and therefore the committee should consider revoking the their license. Thank you, Chair.
Very much. Thank you, Maria. Can I now call on Jennifer, please? Jennifer Barrett? You're on,
Sorry,
yes.
just not quick enough to my mute button, unmute button.
Okay.
Good evening, Chair. I'm here I'm wearing two hats today. One is as the rep for the licensing authority and also as the noise and nuisance officer. So I'll start with the rep for the licensing authority, which is provided in respect of the premises and with specific reference to the operations history. So the operator's history. The representations made by us in support of a review submitted by Trading Standards. We want to make representations in support of the review on the basis that there's a history of the operators having been granted premises licenses in other locations, and that they have been unable to comply with the legal requirements of the Licensing Act. The representation goes on to describe an outline of the history in relation to two premises in Enfield, 495 Hertford Road, and issues in 2009 where Mr. Alton, Mr. Kemal Alton, who was identified as the DPS then, but he's also married to Mrs. Yangan, who's the DPS for the premises here at Topsfield Parade, apologies, and just outlines their history from 2009 in relation to the sale of alcohol with excessive levels of methanol, and that following a minor variation in 2012 to add conditions to the licence, Mr. Alton's premises licence was actually revoked in 2015 on the grounds of these unpaid alcohol sales and also issues around alcohol and licensing conditions. In 2022, Enfield Council's Trading Standards in relation to the same premises reviewed the licence following two seizures of non-duty paid goods and licence breaches, and the licence was revoked. It should be noted that when Enfield Trading Standards visited the premises, it was Ms. Aylin Yangin that spoke with them, and she's the wife of Mr. Alton and the current premises license holder for 42A Topsfield Parade.
Carry on.
Yep. There's also a review waiting to be heard in relation to 38 Chaseside. The license review relates to the premises, again in relation to trading standards issues, and was heard in January of this year. The review sought to revoke the premises license and related to a range of unlawful activities which included illicit tobacco sales, breach of licensing conditions, and the sale of the drugs mentioned previously, and non-compliant vapes. The named person in this instance was a Nure Ozdemir, apologies for my pronunciation, and we believe that's Mr. Alton's sister. And there appears to be a family connection with all the premises. The background was provided to the other premises to demonstrate that Mr. Alton and Ms. Yengin have been associated with premises that are routinely or have been found to not comply with licensing regulations or trading standards regulations. The licensing authority has provided this because they cannot demonstrate, or they provided this to demonstrate that they have no confidence in the ability of the current DPS or the current listed DPS, Ms. Yelton and Elgin, to trade legally or lawfully. We have contacted Ms. Yelgan Alton in relation to the breaches identified and the issues identified, with the view to engaging with her and requesting that she comply with the requirements set out. Unfortunately, we've had very little contact with Ms. Yelgan, and she has not led on any of the communications related to the day-to-day operations of the premises. Most of our conversations have been with Mr. Alton, her husband. The premises is also advertised. It's the nature of the advertisement of the sale of NOS. So we understand and appreciate that the sale of NOS is not unlawful. However, it's the method with which they've used to advertise these sales which gives us cause for concern.
Jennifer, can I ask you also to wind up now, please?
Yeah.
Because you're over the 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yes, and so I've just demonstrated that that speaks to a pattern of non-compliance from Ms. Yelgan and Mr. Alton.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you.
That's all right.
Can I now call on Sue Davidson, please? Sue, you're muted.
Hi. Can you?
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Hi. I'm a local resident. I have on numerous occasions found canisters in the street. There was one occasion when there were 12 canisters in the street. There were also young, mainly young men standing outside Melange, which is at the end of the road. They were filling balloons with gas, and they were laughing and behaving in a very dangerous and a ridiculous way. This has gone on for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being so brief. Thank you. Is Andreas there now? Andreas? No? Then Mr. Ahern, we're up to you. And you have 5 minutes, Mr.
Thank you. Yes, look, I do. I just very quickly on point of order, would like to ask just a little bit of consideration, because I am representing numerous residents in this matter. It's not something I wanted to do. It's been thrust upon me, and it's unlike other participants. I didn't volunteer for this. I'm not getting paid, and so I would ask for a little bit of patience. I am not going to go longer than 5 minutes, as long as the officers have read the my submission. I'm confident that everything will be covered there. It's what shocks me is that literally just last night we were seeing a massive amount of large crates still being delivered, like coming straight to the front door at 10 o'clock at night. So regardless of, I would like to address the suggestions that numerous people are making about the legality of selling nitrous oxide. I would like to make sure people do actually know what they're talking about regarding the Psychoactive Substances Act. Make sure they do consider the law as regards paragraph 48 of the explanatory notes of the Psychoactive Substances Act, and of course the leading case on the matter, which is Aaron Chapman, before they suggest somehow that the sale of nitrous oxide is somehow lawful. So other than, I would also like to draw their attention to the pop music used to sell on TikTok. This is TikTok primarily aimed at teenagers. I also have and listened to the music that was played, which I provided in my evidence, and also the statement made on ITV News by a leading neurologist that says that the types of things that were being advertised by Maxi across 4 shops, he says, if you take this, it will kill you. There are also concerns, which the only other thing I would add to my evidence, and it was a matter I would ask somebody from public health, but they may not be able to answer the question. There is a role of nitric oxide in providing, in enabling erections. And I'm concerned that the sale of nitrous oxide and erectile dysfunction drugs is not necessarily a mistake, but is actually by design and actually a business proposition. That I'm concerned about my particularly female residents, and it is particularly males that are being reported in numerous numbers, and the allegations of abuse and threats directed towards young women does extremely concern me. So I know you're going to take 5 days to respond. Most of what I've written should cover all of my points, so I don't need to say anything further. But I do reserve the ability to ask questions of people later.
Thank you very much. Right, so now I'm going to members. So Councillor Barbara Blake, have you any questions of any of the people who have put forward their representations?
No, I have no questions, Chair.
Councillor Da Costa?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. I'll take them in turn to the relevant people, if that's all right, so that we can try and, yeah.
Yeah, please be brief because we're running out of time.
Okay, okay, then to Miss Ahmed from Public Health. In the letter from the premises licence holder of the 3rd of February, she stated that she allowed staff members to take the illegal vapes home with them when she was informed she could not sell them. Do you believe that's responsible behaviour?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
Certainly. In Miss Yengin's letter of the 3rd of February, she states that she allowed members of staff to take the illegal vapes home for their own use. Do you believe that's responsible behaviour?
I do not believe so. That is responsible behaviour.
Thank you. Okay. What's the next order? Jennifer, Miss Barrett. Miss Barrett, on page 96, you state that CCTV footage from the 7th to the 8th and 8th of 9th of October was requested but never supplied. Is that the case? And was any reason given for non-supply?
No reason was given, and that still remains the case.
Thank you. And then a clarification on page 96. In your representation, the final paragraph just before evaluation, the last sentence is, we checked CCTV footage between 0015 and 0050 hours and observed 3 completed and 1 abandoned Smart Whip sale. Can I just confirm the 3 completed sales, were those for Smart Whip?
Yes, they were for Smart Whip.
Excellent, thank you. Who's next? I think that's it. Oh, no, apologies. That's it for officers.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you to the officers. Miss Davidson, may I ask you a question?
Yes, sure.
Thank you. You mentioned you've witnessed nitrous oxide being used. Have you seen people purchasing it from the store?
No, I've seen the canisters very visibly on display in the window of the store. I haven't seen people purchasing it, but it's I would say it's 10 meters where they were being consumed from the store.
Thank you. And then my last question for Mr. Ahern.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Actually, sorry, 2 questions. Can you, as the landlord, can you quickly briefly explain the relationship you had with the previous operator of the shop?
I mean, I knew them not massively well. I was doing a lot of building work above, so I had to treat them with due consideration. There was some renovating those flats was an incredible amount of time, effort and money. During lockdown it was difficult, and it was also they were really old and needed a really good go at. So I mostly spent my time apologizing, if I'm really honest, and trying to keep them happy, and they were very patient and good people, but they were just an old Asian couples, typical, running a news agent with, and that was it. I think they had a good repute in the area. They did get upset with me sometimes as the nature of building work, but like I say, I had to apologize and compensate as best I could.
Thank you. And then last question, if I may, it relates to something you raised in your point. The current license on the premises states that deliveries should happen between 0900 hours and 1700 hours. Can you just clarify? You said there are deliveries happening outside that time period?
I received from one of my tenants photographs and videos. I was out at dinner at the time. I'll just find you the exact date and time. Give me 2 secs. Tuesday, 23rd of May at 21:21.
Thank you.
And then continuous for about 10 minutes or so.
Thank you.
I don't know whether I didn't listen to the points on your like delivery sort of regulations, but that's the precise time.
Thank you very much.
Right, Mr. Sutherland, have you any questions? Bearing in mind you're going to make representation yourself quite soon.
Madam, thank you. I've got a couple of questions, if I may. If I may, Madam, to start with Ms. Davidson. I think, Ms. Davidson, you were asked by Councillor Da Costa, and you indicated that you've seen the, quite fairly, you said you hadn't seen them being sold, but you'd seen the canisters on display in the window. Could I ask you when was the last you saw them in the window? If I was to suggest to you that it hasn't been since February, would you be able to agree with me or not agree with me?
I don't know.
Okay, thank you. That's fair. And Ms. Barrett, sorry, Ms. Jennifer Barrett from the Licensing Authority.
Yep.
There's some suggestion that the premises is operated outside of hours, sold alcohol outside of hours. Are you able to tell me the date, what the evidence is of that? Because I've seen no evidence at all within the papers. I've heard mention of it, but I've not seen anything at all.
Okay, so we identified that as an issue in September 2022. We issued a warning letter and spoke to them directly and in person. And following that, we made additional reasonable checks throughout the months of October, November and December, and no other issues were raised.
There's no issues other than the suggestion that there was some sale of alcohol outside of hours.
Yeah, we identified that as an issue.
Okay, and where's that?
We spoke to the DPS about it. We wrote to the DPS about it, and then made further checks to make sure that compliance was secured.
Okay. So, I mean, some difficulties. I just don't know any other information about it. You're saying, well, there is no other information about it other than that. And since then, on the inquiries that have been made, everything has been compliant.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
In relation to alcohol sale after the permitted hours in the licence.
Thank you. So there's a request then, I think the councillor, again, Councillor Da Costa, I think asked you about it.
Yeah.
And he did give you the dates, and forgive me because I haven't got the precise dates directly in front of me. I think it's the 7th, 8th and 9th of September. But around about that time, there's a request for CCTV.
Yes.
How was this request made? Again, is there any document or anything that you can refer me to which shows the request being made?
So I'm happy to provide you outside of this meeting with the letters that we sent requesting that information.
Okay, so it was sent by letter.
Yes, we wrote to them and we called them and asked them. And also we visited the store on a number of occasions and spoke to them in person.
Okay. If I say to you that we're not aware of the request that was made,
yeah.
What would you say to me?
I would be surprised, genuinely surprised.
I put it to you, and that's as far as I think I can take it. In relation to the, again, this is something which I think I have to put to you, in relation to the license, the premises license, which when you visit the premises in September and you find that the previous license holder is no longer present, if I suggest to you that in fact the previous license holder may not have been present but have given permission for the license to be used, were there any inquiries made about that? Were there any questions of the shop in relation to that at all?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay. And I think finally, because I think you're the person who deals with it, though I appreciate it's not your statement. In the additional bundle, there's the evidence from Mr. Darvish, which relates to, I believe it's, is it the 24th of
21st of
Sorry,
April.
21st of April. I do apologise. My mistake.
That's all right. It's a specific response made in respect to some comments made in Mr. Solis's report.
Correct. So he produces a number of photographs, and I think one of the photographs on page 8 of the supplementary bundle, I have to say I can't identify the individuals. I don't know whether they're the same people as shown on page 9. Or indeed even on page 10. But is it suggested that they are the same people?
That is suggested, yes.
When they're seen coming out of the shop, which I think is page 10, are they followed to where they're later seen on page 8?
So it's in Mr. Darvish's statement that he was outside the premises, observed them enter, observed them leave. He's on duty, so there were other calls. So he made another visit, came back, made a further assessment, and on his way back, he noticed that the same couple, or what he stated was the same couple, were on a bench in Crouch End.
Okay, so
to the best of his recollection, and he's prepared to provide additional statement to the same fact, he believes they're the same couple.
Yeah, that's all in the paperwork, actually.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you, madam. But clearly, I'm saying that.
Okay. I can see your hand up, Luke. I just want to say if there are any other further questions and points of clarification, Councillor Luke Harrison.
Thanks, Sheila. I think there was an indication from Mr. Sutherland that the last request for CCTV footage was from September. Certainly that's what I inferred from his questioning, although he may not have meant it. But in the additional paper 3 that was just being spoken to there, it obviously does refer to the request for CCTV footage of the incident in question.
Yeah.
And this was refused by the applicant.
That's right.
Sorry, by the licence holder. And as far as I'm aware, has still not been relinquished, which would have obviously provided the evidence beyond doubt about any sale. But also that statement does include details suggesting that there has been previous requests for CCTV footage via letter. So perhaps Mr. Sutherland should read that in more detail if he wants to get the answers to his questions.
Thank you very much, Councillor, because it actually is in the paperwork because I've read it myself.
Madam, I've certainly not seen a letter requesting CCTV.
Yeah, it was in the paperwork.
Well, I've not seen any reference to a letter being made in September of last year. CCTV, madam.
Right.
Madam, there was one final question that I was looking to ask, if I may. It is in relation to the distance, because in effect this is directly Ms. Barrett's evidence because she's giving it on behalf of the witness. If I was to suggest, Ms. Barrett, that it's a 3-minute drive at least from the premises and not a 3-minute walk has been suggested from the premises to where photograph shown on page 8 is taken, would you accept from me that it's more of a 3-minute drive than a 3-minute walk?
It's a 3-minute walk.
You think
I'm
it's a
not
3-minute?
as familiar with the area as the investigating officer, but they have written in their statement what measures they took to get from the store to that location.
Okay, and so do you accept from me that it's probably more of a 3-minute drive?
Perhaps if I can offer some clarity, Chair.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
I'm not asking you, Councillor. I'm asking the person who's written the statement who's giving it, not you, Councillor, but thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Sutherland, but I think you're inferring that my comment that it's a 3-minute walk is inaccurate. So I'm defending that comment, if that's okay with you.
I'm putting it to the witness.
I would like, can I stop all of you now, please? Because I'd like to make some progress and we're just going over and over the same things. And I'd really like to hear now from you, Mr. Sutherland, if you don't mind. Please, can you submit your representation now, please?
Madam, thank you. I shall be more than 5 minutes, I'm afraid. It's obviously taken.
Well, if you look at the time, Mr. Sutherland, you see that we're quite constrained from time, and I was constantly interrupted earlier on when I wanted to make progress, and so I'm asking you to make progress and to see if you can stick, please, to 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
5 minutes, Madam. This application, this review application, has been submitted to you and has taken now worth what, 2 hours 11 minutes.
Okay, none of my doing that.
Do it in 5 minutes, Madam.
All right. Well, do it as quickly as you can, please.
Mr. Sutherland, you spent a lot of time at the top of this meeting going over the procedural matters, which took a lot of time. I think you can keep to time.
Sorry, Mr.
Please. Mr. Sutherland, please make your representation now, please.
Madam, there are a number of points that I want to make. There's probably about 8 points that I'm looking at making in relation to this. I'm focusing obviously on the issues which have been raised. A lot has been said and raised about various different things which are said to have happened or could have happened at the premises, and I would invite the committee to disregard those things which really are not supported by the evidence. There are a lot of photographs, for example, in relation to nitrous oxide, which is said to be sold from the premises and is being used around the premises. Now, anything that I say, Madam, relates really to the situation from the time that this review is brought, which is in February. And since the review was commenced in February, there has been, and I repeat, there has been no sale of nitrous oxide from this premises to persons who will have taken it outside and will have consumed it on the street. There are a number of things which are not accepted, but before I go on and deal with those things which are not accepted, I think it is appropriate, Madam, as you probably will have picked up from conversations that are recorded with Ms. Barrett and also with Trading Standards, that are accepted and are not acceptable, and for those the licence holder apologises that we are here. So in relation to the sale of the vapes being of the wrong size, yes, they shouldn't have been sold. They were sold and they were offered to staff. I understand what Councillor Da Costa, I suppose, is getting at in the sense of was that a responsible thing to do? In this particular regard, it wasn't thought of as being irresponsible. Staff were not forced to take them. They were invited if they wanted to have them. And if they did, they took them. If they didn't, they left them. But those items should not have been on sale. In relation to the sildenafil nitrate, again, those items should not have been on sale. And you've seen from the response from Mr. Alton and Ms. Yengin, when they're asked about this in letter, they respond as to their understanding and their instruction that they have been removed. Unfortunately, that was not followed through and they were left on the premises. And again, they should not have been there. In relation to those items, and also I suppose in relation to the sales of nitrous oxide gas, my client apologises in relation to the impact that has had. Now, just focusing for a moment, if I may, in relation to the nitrous oxide gas, they were approached in September about the problems that were being, that they said that they were causing, and they disputed that fact, and they stopped initially. But when they made inquiries of the local authority and said, look, are we not able to sell the items? The local authority quite rightly turned around and said, well, no, we can't tell you not to sell them. And given that there were a large number of premises, we say, in the area that were selling them, my client went back to selling them for a period of time until we come to the review, which happens in February. And at that stage, they stop and have not sold them since. Now, what you've had since then, of course, is a lot of photographs showing nitrous oxide in vehicles outside of the premises, being possibly transported into the premises from time to time before they're then removed on to other premises. My client has a number of businesses and which do involve the lawful supply of nitrous oxide. It is not a forbidden product for the circumstances that are required. Indeed, I myself have bought nitrous oxide for various parties, etc., that I've been involved with, not for personal ingestion, but for the purpose of blowing up balloons and other items in order that a party can take place. It's a lawful substance, and the sale of it in the circumstances that we have here, and there's no evidence to contradict this, has been lawful. Given the concerns which have been expressed about how it has been misused within the area, it is accepted by my client that he will not sell it going forward, and has not sold it since the commencement of this review in February. That focuses very much on the nitrous oxide. It focuses on the alleged breaches and obviously the other matters that we are accepting in relation to the vapes and the sildenafil nitrate. Reference is made in the papers to a TikTok video. Again, my client would apologise to the committee that the video was put on to TikTok. It was actually created by somebody who was employed by the premises. My client was not aware that it had been placed up until was informed through the review process. When he became aware of it, he instructed the staff member to remove it, and it has been removed since that time, and is not available to be observed. Before I go on to talk about going forward, what I would invite Mr. Sollers to do, because he's been to the premises and he deals specifically with this allegation on the 21st of April. The situation on the 21st of April is that you have a few photographs there. I see no nitrous oxide being purchased at the premises. I see no nitrous oxide on the individuals going into the shop, and I see no nitrous oxide on them coming out. I do accept that the very grainy picture that is shown on the supplemental bundle at page 8 could be individuals. They could be inhaling from a balloon. I cannot say, because it's not clear from the images that I've seen. I cannot say whether they are the same people. But let me say this: if they are the same people, what is clear is that they did not get the nitrous oxide from this particular premises. And how can I be sure of that? Because you have Mr. Sollers, who again we weren't aware of what was going to be said about this particular occasion, searches the premises and tells you there is and was no nitrous oxide on the premises on that particular occasion. On that particular occasion, the individuals were left the premises without purchasing any items whatsoever. Now, if they are the same individuals, and for the sake of this argument, I accept that they may be, but if they are, then clearly they get their nitrous oxide from somewhere else. So whilst you've heard from many people that there is nowhere else to purchase nitrous oxide in this area, I have to say to you, the evidence is against them, because the evidence from the licensing officer, from the local authority, is very much that these people have nitrous oxide, and they must have got it from somewhere, and it wasn't from this particular premises, So they must have got it from another premises in that area. And that's what I would say in relation to that. The evidence, I think, is quite incontrovertible that this premises does not sell nitrous oxide. So if I could ask, before I finish up with going forward, if I could ask Mr. Sollers just to relate, please, from his report, I'd be very grateful. Thank you, Mr. Sollers.
Hello, can you hear me?
Because of the time, I would ask you to be really, really short, please.
Madam, I will.
Please.
I'm not going to go over my report, except to say that I thoroughly searched the premises when first of all, I arrived early and had a walk around the premises and walked further and further and further away until I found any nitrous oxide. And I know that there was a scathing comment made by one of the councillors suggesting that this was too far away, but this was actually the first paraphernalia probably from nitrous oxide that I could find, and that explains why I was so far away from it. But when I did go into the shop later on, I searched it thoroughly. There was no gas in there, whether it's large ones or small ones or anything like that. I then went and looked around the area again, and it was when I was coming back in just after midnight that I found Mr. Darvish, one of your noise officers, asking for the CCTV from that evening. I explained to him that there was no gas in there, and therefore it wasn't necessary. But in any case, we would provide the CCTV. But I required Mr. Darvish to put that in writing to make sure it was compliant with the Information Commissioner's office and not a fishing expedition, which is what I felt it was, because I knew there was no gas in there. To this day, I have not received anything back from Mr. Darvish requesting it formally in writing. Further, I've got my phone open on the distance from Maxi Food and Wine to Crescent Road. At the moment, it takes 2 minutes to drive or 10 minutes to walk. It is a decent distance from the shop. Now, I'm not saying that there's never been trouble in and around that place associated with nitrous oxide gas, because I absolutely accept that. But what seems to be happening is every ill in this community is being placed on Maxi. The police have made no test purchases there. The council have made no test purchases there. These things would have made it really easy for the authorities to review or prosecute. And like I say, I have a history of reviewing and prosecuting premises, and I just feel that there's lots of gossip and myth and confirmation bias against these people, when in truth there is little evidence of these allegations. And indeed, the crime figures for the area expand on that. You know, that at the end of my
Mr. Thomas, can I stop you now, please, because you have given us a really very full report, and I'm sure that everybody present here has read your very full report, and you're just telling us stuff that we've already read. So can I please, because I'm really concerned about the time. I don't want us to run out and then have to defer this meeting. I really want us to carry on.
I would like to just say one thing then, please. Somebody, one of your staff or one of your councillors said there have been 10 calls to the police about antisocial behaviour, and that's just not held out in the crime figures that are reported on an official database that show the crimes. I invite you to look at those at the end of my report, because that shows you what the actual crimes are and the actual nuisance is.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
If you give me just 2 minutes, I will round up.
I'm going to keep you really tight to the minutes, because, as I said, I don't want to run out of time. Please.
Understood, Madam, and I don't want to run out of time either. So if you give me 2 minutes, I think, Madam, the two things that I would look to finish off with are in relation to the conditions which are set out in the papers that you've seen. Those conditions are full and complete. They address the issues which have been raised, and if imposed upon the premises licence, it's my submission that they would address the concerns and would promote the licensing objectives. They clearly address the issue about the storage of nitrous oxide and the sale of nitrous oxide. In addition, Madam, with regards to the breaches that have been accepted, what I would say to the committee is that a proportionate response in relation to those would be a suspension of the licence and not a revocation. It has been suggested earlier that the suspension be for 3 months. Obviously, that is the maximum period that you could impose. If the committee felt that that was appropriate, then so be it. I would ask that obviously any suspension be for a shorter period, as is thought to be reasonable. Though I accept that in the circumstances, with the breaches that are accepted, that 3 months may be appropriate. Madam, I'm sure there'll be questions, so at this stage I shall leave it for the questions, if I may.
Thank you very much. And as I've said, members, I'm conscious of the time, so I'm now going to call on any members who wish to have questions of Mr. Sutherland's representation. Councillor Luke Harrison.
Yeah, thank you. There was a suggestion from Mr. Sutherland that the latest incident reported in the additional papers 3, that it was beyond doubt that no sale had taken place of the nitrous canisters to the individuals. But as I mentioned earlier, CCTV was requested and refused. So there is doubt because no evidence has been provided to place beyond doubt, Mr. Sutherland, that sale did not take place. So it is, in fact, your word against anyone else's. As far as I'm aware, and perhaps you...
I'm able to answer the question that's been put to me.
Please, don't interrupt, please. Carry on.
I thought I'd been asked the question. I was looking to respond to it.
No, let him finish.
Okay.
If you confirm, whilst Mr. Solis may have provided an inventory check of the shop, my understanding is that he has been contracted by your employer to make this report. This is not an independent report from a responsible authority or anything like that. This is someone you have contracted to provide a report in your defence or your licence holder's defence. That's correct, isn't it?
In respect of it being my word against everyone else's, no, I don't accept that at all. I think the evidence from Mr. Solis is clear. In respect of the CCTV, my understanding is that I haven't seen a written request, but if a written request has been made, then there's no reason why it wouldn't have been provided, because clearly that CCTV would confirm that there is no sale of any nitrous oxide taking place at the premises on that evening.
It's half past 9 now. I really have to make progress. Can you just wait until Councillor Da Costa's spoken and Councillor Blake and then come back? Is that possible?
I was just going to pick up on the other point about the
Mr. Sutherland, could I just take this opportunity to ask the chair if we could extend for this evening, because obviously we've come to 9:30 now. The meeting's due to end at 10 o'clock, so we do need a decision as to whether we can extend these proceedings or not. I would suggest we extend for just a very short period of time, but it's a matter for the chair.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
This is what I was not looking forward to doing, but I could extend it for, say, 10 minutes. But please, everybody, I know you're all very concerned about all of this, but I'll be repeating, obviously, sometimes again and again the same point. I'd like a fresh point made or not at all. So Councillor Da Costa and then Councillor Blake, and then we go back to Mr. Sutherland.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. I'll try and stick to 2 questions, if I may.
Please.
In the first instance, at least. You mentioned in your statement that you made, you said that with regards to sale of illegal vapes and illegal medication, these shouldn't have happened, and apologies for having done this. Yet these are offences, incidents that have occurred at previous shops. So in your view, should the owner, the premises license holder, not have already learnt their lesson from the previous shops in Enfield where similar offences were being done? And then my second question relates to delivery of items. Your argument is they're being delivered and then passed on to other places. Yet those deliveries are happening outside the current licensed hours. Why is that the case?
And Mr. Southern, before you respond, I'd like to ask Councillor Blake, then you can respond to both of them, please. Councillor Blake.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Mr. Sutherland, I mean, you said that the staff were asked to remove items and they did not. You also said that a staff member, you know, put this video on TikTok, which the owners knew nothing about. Why? I don't understand. I mean, do those staff members still work at the premises? What did the owner, I mean, were they disciplined? What was the response of the management, the owner of that shop, when they found out that staff members were going behind their back, not doing what they were told, and putting videos on TikTok? What was the reaction of the management of that business? Chair, I would like to ask Mr. Solers, I mean, why, if they were asked to, you were asked to provide the CCTV, and I must admit, I find saying that you thought that the trading standards or the antis that were at the council were on a fishing expedition, which I do find odd language. Why not just give them the CCTV if there was nothing to hide? You say, Mr. Solers says he did a thorough search of the business and there was nothing there. Why not just give them the CCTV? That could have just closed that off. So I really don't understand. And I really don't understand your comment about fishing exhibition, fishing expedition. Thanks, Chair.
Robert, shall I answer that bit first? Can you hear me?
He's on mute.
Sorry, sorry, please do, Jim.
First of all, people are not allowed to just give away data. CCTV is covered by the same regulations as any other data, and the Data Commissioner's Office says it shouldn't be divulged unless there's a reason. And I know, and you should know, or certainly your staff or your council employees will explain to you, that it has to be a lawful a request, and if it's made in writing, then that can be tested. But they have no right. Your staff have no right to go into places saying, "I want to see your CCTV to see if there's any offences on there." It's got to be more than that. That is a fishing expedition, and that's expressly forbidden in law.
Thank you.
Well, but sorry, but Miss Jennifer Barrett, they wrote and they made a telephone call. So
No,
I'm sorry.
They have not written about this incident. I've been in contact with Mr. Darvish, who was the man who was there at the time. He has my email address. He did email me one email, but he has not made any request for CCTV. He has not.
Why? Because the owner of the business has said that he didn't receive the letter or that the telephone. I mean, perhaps, let me just say, perhaps then one of these members of staff picked up the phone then.
Madam, it's not a question of phoning. I explained to him that if he wanted the CCTV, we were happy to work with him and we would give him the CCTV. All he had to do was make a fully compliant application, which he has not done.
Thank you. Mr. Sutherland, please.
Sorry, madam, it was very noisy at my end, so that's why I muted myself. If I miss a question, then councillors, please forgive me, because I have written them down. So let me just work through them as I've got them recorded. I think Councillor Corey Harrison asked me about whether Mr. Solis was independent. To a certain extent, he's correct. Of course, he is instructed by those instructing me to attend the premises and to carry out an independent report. However, I'm sure that Mr. Solis will be able to assure you that the evidence that he's given to you is what he truly believes and not something which he thinks he needs to do because he's being paid to do it. He treats himself as an expert witness, and I think that anything to suggest that he is not, I know that he would be deeply upset by and would disagree with. In relation to the illegal vapes and the illegal medication, I think the question was on the basis that they've done it before and they should have learned a lesson. And to an extent, I would agree with that comment that it had happened before. But I think what I would say in relation to that, you've read quite extensively, I'm sure, the minutes of the meeting of what happened in Enfield, not just the decision. I'm sure you've read all the circumstances and everything that I have related to the committee. I haven't relayed that tonight because I know that you will have read it in the minutes as to the personal circumstances for both Mr. Ayton and Ms. Yengen. I do think that accepting that shouldn't have happened is part of looking for a proportionate response. And what I would suggest to the committee is that the proportionate response to prevent this from happening again, as a deterrence, I suppose, to a degree, to this premises and possibly others, would be a period of suspension. And I think that's the appropriate course, together with the conditions. I'm then asked about the delivery times and why the deliveries take place outside of the hours. One of the things that I would probably say about this particular license is that the terminology of the license is not as clear as I think it could be or should be. So in relation to that particular condition, it does say that deliveries will be during day working hours between 9 and 5, so as not to disturb neighbours or the public. And the vast majority of deliveries do take place between 9 and 5. There's nothing preventing the deliveries taking place outside of those hours. And that's the bit which I think, if the condition was to be tightened up to prevent, if that was a concern.
Mr. Sutherland, can I just stop you for a minute, please? Because actually, what you're doing now is you're going into the summing up, and that's
no, madam, I'm answering the question. It may be that you don't like my answer, but it is an answer to the question from Councillor Da Costa. I think then Councillor Blake asked about the reaction over TikTok. They were extremely annoyed, and as I say, asked that it be that the item be removed immediately. The person was dismissed and wasn't able to keep the job at the premises because of that. I think Mr. Solis has dealt with the other question. I think that's correct, but if I've missed anything, councillors, do forgive me because I was going off my notes.
Okay, thank you. Now, Mr. Ahern, I've given you just a few minutes, please.
I know, and the thing is, I do ask for, please understand that I am representing numerous.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm
going to get on with it. But basically, I have a number of questions. First of all, the offence under the Psychoactive Substances Act is actually for supply, not just sale, isn't it, Mr. Sutherland? So the fact is that there has been supply from the premises, and if there's not been supply, where the hell is all that stuff going? The second question is on basically the standard of proof in these sorts of meetings, these licensing committees, is the balance of probabilities. So if a shop in an area is selling NO2, are you and your clients denying that it's likely that people consuming NO2 outside the shop got the nitrous oxide from the shop? I don't understand. You'll also note from the Psychoactive Substances Act that really supply or sale of psychoactive substances like nitrous oxide is only permitted under certain exceptions, one of which is catering. Yeah, but within this whole process, if you're claiming that there was somehow catering, you're relying on the catering exception, why haven't you provided a single invoice from catering clients to establish that defense? Yeah. You mentioned about Enfield and the fact of previous sorts of situations that they should have learnt from, but also I note that numerous times in the Enfield minutes, 4 times I can count, that you have said, and you've repeated on behalf of your client, that the main focus of that hearing was that this does not happen again. Yeah. How is that going for you? Yeah. Again, on Enfield, you blame staff, and you're blaming staff again for the TikTok incident. Yeah, I would like to know who was actually doing the replies to the people requesting supply of 20 bottles of nitrous oxide over TikTok. Who was that person? And also, why do they keep employing such bad staff? I'd like to ask about your own parties, why you are filling party balloons with nitrous oxide when it's normal to use helium. As regards using their daughter, again, do their clients really think it's appropriate to use their daughter twice to excuse their unlawfulness? As regards the GDPR exceptions, do you know what, that's technical, but you can look up things about legitimate interest, and the owner gave consent for the collection and processing of data. Mr. Solis has been talking. I'll address matters to him. I don't understand. Could he explain why in his aspects of his previous professional life, in paragraph 1.1, he left out the fact that he was featured in the Times, The Standard, The Independent, and BuzzFeed as the subject of a corruption investigation, which was the
You
Scotland
cannot
Yard.
say that. You cannot.
Sir, I've finished my questions. You continue that afterwards. I also would like to understand if you use the Facebook page.
Quite a lot in relation to the Rehabilitated Offenders Act, in relation to a number of people in relation to this. But to pick up an allegation which is unsubstantiated and upon which somebody has been found not to have been involved with, I just think is scurrilous.
Well, then that should have been made clear, because we all work off the end of it.
And I think the person mentioned it should be ashamed of himself, and if he carries on, then maybe subject to
Sorry,
some
Mr. Sutherland. Mr. Sutherland, the chair is trying to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dahlia. Mr. Ahern, I'm not calling you to speak anymore, because as far as I'm concerned, you just made your summing up, and because again I keep on saying this about the question of time, and you're all just going over the same thing over and over again, which is not helpful to this
All
meeting.
my quotes are new.
Okay, so I'm going to ask each party now to sum up, and I'm going to ask the 2 councillors, if you could please pick one of you to do the summing up as far as you're concerned, and from the other people's point of view, I'm going to ask somebody else to come forward. I've already heard Mr. Ahern, and I don't wish to hear him anymore. So it's either Councillor Luke Costa, Luke Harrison, yeah, to speak. I'm getting all confused now, because
Sorry, don't worry about it.
Who's going to do the summing up for the members, please?
In summary, all 3 Crouch End councillors are calling for a revocation of the licence based on the continuous disregard for licensing objectives, not just the nitrous oxide. We ask that you don't specifically concentrate on that, although that has led to a huge amounts of antisocial behaviour in the area, but the sale of all the other illicit goods.
Thank you very much. Councillor Da Costa. Councillor, you going to speak on behalf of Councillor Blake and yourself? Sum up.
No, we're part of the subcommittee. We don't sum up.
Councillor Da Costa is part of your team today, Councillor. So it's for the resident that was on the call. They sum up. Jennifer Barrett may sum up. And of course, Mr. Squires needs to sum up, and Mr. Sutherland needs to sum up.
Right, can I just give you all literally just over a minute to be really precise? And as I said, I've already heard Mr. Ahern summing up, and he's got questions for other people. So where should we start? Where should we start? Sue Davidson.
No, I have nothing more to say. I've given my statement already. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Ahmet.
Just quickly
Maria?
to say that, can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yep.
Just to quickly say that it's clear from the photographs that the erectile dysfunction tablets were visible displayed to customers along with the other goods such as alcohol, and the applicant needs to acknowledge that this is a serious criminal offence to sell illegal medication, for they are not qualified and they're putting residents at risk, and an apology is not an appropriate response for potentially risking the health and lives of our residents. Likewise, with the illegal vapes, the applicant not knowing this does not make them a responsible licensed premise holder, and the health and well-being risk to our residents does not seem to have been taken into account.
Okay, thank
we're
you.
not
Come on.
And that's fine. That's all right though. So we're not convinced with the owner's response.
Okay, and Jennifer Barrett. Can you sum up quickly, please?
Yes, just briefly summarising. So from the point of view of the licensing authority, we're recommending a revocation of the licence because we lack confidence in the abilities of the current DPS. From the noise and nuisance point of view, we've set out our case. We have evidence that there are issues here in relation to the sale of NOS and its association with ASB. We have made suitable inquiries into the local shops and confirmed that we don't believe NOS sale is occurring anywhere else on the parade, and so support any revocation of the licence.
Thank you very much, Mr. Squires.
Hello. I think the certainly the issues that trading standards have raised, I think, are largely not in dispute, and obviously since we made our application, there's obviously been a lot of evidence from the other responsible authorities, which I think the committee should take into account, and on balance it may be necessary to revoke the licence.
Okay. Mr. Ahern, I'm going to be really generous to you, give you 1 minute, that's it.
And I'm going to be generous to you. I'm done.
Thank you very much.
Chair, can I just give some legal advice to the committee as well? This is a matter that was raised by Mr. Sutherland at the beginning of the meeting today in relation to the current DPS. Can I just say that Section 38 of the Licensing Act would come into effect in relation to that issue, and it is correct that the current DPS holder would be the applicant as long as the applicant has tick the correct box on the application to say that they wish for for them to become the license holder with immediate effect. So until the review on the 12th of June by the police, the current DPS holder would be Mr. Karakov. So that's advice for the whole committee.
Thank you very much for that. Oh, sorry, it's been a hectic evening for all of us.
Chair.
Yes.
There's Mr. Sutherland. He may need to sum up. I know Councillor Crawley's got his hand up, but you also to hear Mr. Sutherland sum up.
Yeah, I was going to just call on Mr. Sutherland, actually.
Sorry, Chair. I said a question in response to the legal statement there, if that's okay.
Okay. Well, quickly then, please.
What date that commences from? Is that from the 27th of April that would have taken effect?
Yeah, from the date of the application.
Are there any incidents that have happened that are in the pack since that date would be against the current named DPS, Mr. Karagoz, anyway?
Yeah.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. Thank you.
Right. And that would be in force until the application is either accepted, rejected, or withdrawn.
Mr. Sutherland.
Thank you, Madam. I shall be within your time limit, I hope. In relation to this particular review application, it started off as an application for a suspension of the licence and a modification of the conditions. It's my submission to this committee that that's where this matter should finish up, because that's the proportionate and appropriate response in relation to this. All of the allegations in relation to other things which are said did or did not happen, I would ask the committee to disregard and look at what is the way to prevent these things from happening again, and to promote the licensing objectives. And the quickest, surest way to prevent nitrous oxide being delivered to the premises and being kept on the premises is to impose condition 14, which is on page 22 of your agenda pack. Any other process today, any other decision, does not immediately prevent the nitrous oxide being stored on the premises. We have submitted that it's not being sold from the premises in an unlawful way, and certainly is not even being sold from the premises at all since the review actually began. There is no evidence, I would submit, since this application began in February, which indicates that the premises has been operated in breach of the law or in breach of the license. And it's on that basis that I invite the committee to impose the proportionate response of a suspension of up to 3 months and to modify the conditions, because that's the way that going forward the licensing objectives can be promoted. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sutherland. Thank you. And can I thank everybody that's been present at this committee meeting tonight. It's been quite a hectic evening, and I thank you all for your attendance. And Mr. Sutherland, as you well know, that the committee will now deliberate on the decision, and it be provided to you within the 5 working days of this meeting. Thank you again, everybody, for your attendance tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam, and to the committee for their time. Do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, panel.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Chair.
Chair.
Bye. Good night.
Thanks. Good night.